Podtacular episode 396, Glasslands discussion for October 24th, 2013. Hello everyone, welcome to Podtacular, the unofficial Halo Universe podcast. I'm your host, Duststorm.
And I'm your other host, Brent Gamer.
And we're back with more Halo news and another little Halo topic that we're going to be talking about today, which is going to be the book Glasslands. It's the first book within the Kilo 5 trilogy written by Karen Traviss, and we have quite the panel of guests tonight to give our kind of thoughts and discussion topics tonight. So we'll get to those right now. First, we have returning from last week, Laird. Welcome back to the show.
Hello. Thank you for having me again.
Yay. Good to have distinguished Podtacular members back on the show.
You can say old. Sorry now.
No, it's cool. We also have some people from Forward Unto Dawn. You know, one of the guys that's been on the podcast before, and that is FinalPOSTMORTEM. Welcome back.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on. And we have the other member, not slightly live, but he was supposed to be on, but looks like he's having mic problems at the moment. But we have the third illustrious member of the Forward Unto Dawn crew, and that is Dangerous Dave.
I was waiting to see if you'd use my full name, but nice, just smoothing that over.
You're welcome. So we will get a slight introduction with you because we have not had you on the podcast yet. So it is customary for all of our new guests to give us a little brief history of themselves. But we have one more guest tonight that we'd like to introduce, and I got to meet him at PAX, and that is TDSpiral. Welcome to the show.
Hi, how's it going?
It's going pretty well. Thanks for
having me.
Yeah, thanks for being on.
Tell us briefly what you do.
I draw pictures, mostly.
Draws pictures.
Yep. A bunch of Halo pictures. I did the cover of these guys' books, Community Evolved. They just launched their Kickstarter like a year ago. But I also do charity work with Laird. We do lots of Halo posters and get them signed. It's really fun. It's nice.
Very nice.
Your wonderfully awesome cover that's in a certain Halo book.
Oh yeah, I always forget about that. I did the cover for Evolutions. It actually printed out really poorly, so I'm I kind of hate talking about it because it's such a letdown for me. But it was cool being in there anyways.
Really? So you're the man behind the Evolutions cover?
Yeah,
that is pretty cool.
For Headhunters.
The one.
And
Garrett,
okay.
It's okay to talk about some friends a little bit if you want.
Oh yeah. I also work with Isaac on a startup game studio that we're doing, Some Friends Studios, and we're working on a game that's tentatively called Evo right now. And you should be seeing a Kickstarter from us in February, and it's going to be pretty sweet.
Wow, full-on game studio. That's going to be pretty interesting. How many people are you looking to get it started up with?
We have about 9 people right now, I believe. But
yeah, 9, and we're looking at bringing on a producer.
Yeah.
Ah, very nice. So it's a nice small little group. Is it going to be something that's like a console game? Is it going to be mobile platform? Is it going to be computer? Is there any kind of details that you...
Right now we're aiming for computer.
Okay.
We're just doing like a prototype game right now, kind of like a demonstration of what we can do. And then I think we're going to launch that alongside our Kickstarter, so we can show people what we're capable of doing. And with the public funding us, then we'd be able to make a much larger game.
Right. Is it like a shooter or an adventure game, or what kind of genre does it fit into?
It's kind of a platformer, I would say.
Oh, okay.
But there's some interesting stuff with that. So
yeah, I guess technically we would call it a 2.5D side-scrolling platformer.
Oh, so something like Explosion Man.
Somewhat, yeah. There's a lot of differences, but I guess from a technical standpoint, it's very similar. in terms of how you play and how it's presented visually.
Okay, cool. Well, I won't ask too many questions because it's a upcoming
we're here
project.
to talk about Halo. What is all
Yeah.
this?
We're here to talk a little bit about Halo.
Drop a link to our website if the audience wants to check that out, and if you guys want to check that out after the show.
Yeah, definitely go ahead and drop it in the chat if you want. So I guess Laird kind of did the mini interview with TDSpiral. Thanks for that.
Whoops. You can still do an in-depth
Nah,
one.
I'll get to a little bit more in depth. So give us a little bit of background on how you got started with Halo. What's kind of that one thing that got you involved with the franchise?
Well, I'm younger than a lot of other Halo fans, I'd say. A lot of other Halo fans are, like in their mid-20s or 30s, or later. And so Halo came around when I was like 9, I think. And I actually got an Xbox because I was really into Oddworld and I wanted to play Munch's Odyssey. But I kept hearing about this game called Halo, and I played it at a friend's house, and I was like, this game is amazing, and I had to get it. And my brother and I, we always played co-op and fight each other on multiplayer. And for a little while, I kind of got out of Halo, and I didn't get back into it until Halo 3. The reason being is because I heard about like customizable armor. I don't know what it was about it, but that did it for me. I was like, all right, yeah, I'm gonna get back into this. And I guess just from there, I got more into Halo. Like with the story. I never read the books before, but my first book was Contact Harvest, actually, which is kind of weird, but good book. But I lurked on HBO for a while, but I didn't join until I think before ODST, and I started posting some art there. And it's pretty much, since then I've been getting involved deeper with the community, doing, artwork every now and then. I've met a lot of good people in there, like Isaac and Laird, doing lots of work with them.
Very nice. So you're kind of the artistic style of the Halo universe.
I would say so, yeah.
Very nice. Well, we definitely have some interesting concept arts that we get just from the developers, so it's nice to see some other people going and doing that kind of thing too, especially if you have something that went into one of the Halo books. So that's pretty cool.
That's another big point. I wasn't like super into artwork, until this book I got for Christmas. It's called The Art of Halo 3. It was a pretty pivotal moment in my life, I think, where I was just like, this is what I want to do. I want to get into game concept art.
Interesting. All right, and is that what you're doing for your new game studio? Is doing a lot of the concept design?
Yeah. I am the officially designated concept 2D artist.
Very nice. Well, thank you for our little background information on you. Appreciate it. Let's move over to David. Give us a little background on how you got started with Halo and how you got to where you are now with Forward Unto Dawn.
Oh, okay. This requires thought on my part.
I guess you weren't expecting that question, were you?
Well, I got started, I want to say 2004. I had always been a Mac gamer, which to people who grew up in the late 90s, early 2000s and had Macs, that's kind of funny. Contradiction in terms. But eventually I got and aside from renting consoles back when you could rent consoles at these things called Blockbusters, aside from that, I never really played consoles. My brother, though, got a Xbox in 2004 and came with the awesome Crimson Skies and then the even more awesome Combat Evolved. And so we blew through that, and since it was the Game of the Year edition or whatever, it came with all the previews for Halo 2. So we picked that up when it came out. Then the Xbox broke, and I didn't play Halo until about a year and a half ago. But in the meantime, I edited a bunch of Wikipedia articles about Halo. I sort of lurked on HBO for a really long time, got into posting there. our fearless leader at Fort Dawn, Danny, started it up shortly after Ascendant Justice, the original Halo fiction site, sort of closed down because its main guys transferred over to 343. And he had a writing contest to sort of pick up people he wanted to join the site, and Isaac and I won. And so that's how we got started there.
Cool. So what's kind of that one facet of Halo that you kind of clench onto that keeps you going?
It's
because for Fort
everything.
Dawn, it's you kind of go a lot into the lore, and that's kind of where Fort Dawn's focus is, and that's what Justice was focused on. So is that kind of your area? Is just you kind of like to dive deep into the Halo universe, or is there certain aspects of that you really kind of identify with?
I think it's actually broadened a lot more because I played it. I never was a competitive player, but I got into the fiction initially because I really liked that. I remember reading all the crazy in the days of the HBO story page. There were the people who had come up with these great theories about how Cortana was actually gone crazy at the end of Halo 1 and she was going to be the villain in Halo 2. It was entirely plausible. It was totally wrong. But these sort of great theories, and that sort of sucked me in. And I think now I'm actually a lot more interested in even how Halo works, how people interact with Halo. I mean, that's obviously part of what we're doing with our book project, Community Evolved, because it's about the community and how its relationship to the franchise. But, I mean, the lore is still really interesting to me. And I know some people think, oh, well, they've answered all these questions. There's not as many places to go in the lore. But I think actually sort of the opposite. I think that they've answered a lot of questions, but they've blown a lot of new doors open.
Yeah, Halo's definitely one of those universes where they've laid a lot of groundwork for a lot of different avenues to branch off. And we've seen that with the stories. We've seen that with things like Terminals and Halo 3. So there's lots of things out there that lead people to question what exactly is going on. So as far as like just knowing all that there is to know in the Halo universe, I don't think there's really one person that can fully grasp the full concept of where the Halo universe actually is currently.
Mm-hmm. I mean, even
call into question with that, I'd say Stephen Loftus would be probably the only guy that could do that.
better than most, yes.
I guess if it's possible, yes. That's the possibility that comes into question.
Stephen tends to focus more on the technical aspects of the universe more than anything else.
He's a canon buff, just like he could probably be summed up with, he contains the collective knowledge that is in this podcast right now, plus Grim Brother, and still would have a little more than the rest of us.
A little more left over?
A little more, yeah.
Well, he's got the advantage of his home compiled.
Yeah, I wasn't going to bring up that
reference.
Giant reference document thing. Yeah, there's that. That's why I was saying he's kind of the walking encyclopedia.
If he doesn't know it, he knows where to find it immediately.
There's a reason he's working on all the visual guides right now. Interesting.
Yeah, there's lots of people out there that are a lot more knowledgeable than me, which is why I have guests on the show. I get to help utilize their knowledge on behalf of the podcast. But anyways, let's move on to the bulletin. Let's get some immediate news out of the way before we dive into the Glasslands discussion. So this week, 343 had a little pie throwing day. So in order to raise some money for charity, 343 Industries had just kind of a fun day to where they could pay for a pie to throw at anyone they wanted to in the office. So there's a couple of GIFs or GIFs, however you want to pronounce it, on the bulletin. If you want to go check out Frankie, he's in there. He's at the bottom, so he pretty much just takes it straight on without a problem. A couple other people in there that we know of, too, that are in the bulletin. So definitely, like we said in pre-show, we could just sit here and watch them over and over again. They're that entertaining. And then there's a picture, of course, underneath that just shows all the leftover pie containers and the mess that got left. So interesting little way to raise money for charity, but nice to see that they're enjoying themselves while doing it. according to Bravo and the Bulletin, it looks like some people ran away from work and didn't even go. So that's kind of funny. And then there's, I think we decided it was Josh that's holding up a sign. And has anyone figured out what that sign says? Because I can't quite tell.
Yes.
Yes.
I see yes on the bottom, but what's above it?
I don't know. I have to step to it frame by frame. Wait, stop.
Stop.
Enhance.
Zoom. Stop, zoom, enhance. I think that's the Star Trek order of things. Anyways. So there's a little more to the bulletin than just that, though. We have the matchmaking playlist update. And we're actually going to get some neutral flag, it looks like. So this was for a while, an unsupported modded game type, I think. And I guess they finally got around to making it an official game type. So that's going to be dropping into matchmaking on Monday. That's, I think, going to be in the... is that going to be in the rotational, or is that going to be in the CTF playlist?
CTF.
Okay, so CTF playlist. So I forget which one's going to be in the rotational, but I guess that's a little bit further down. So neutral flag, of course, if you don't know what that is, it's one flag spawns in the middle, and you try to run it back to your base. And it's going to be played on a couple maps, Pitfall, Monolith, Skyline, Ragnarok, and Exile. So I think I might actually go in and try to play this, because it gives a little different twist on CTF. And there's been game types in the past like Assault, but that wasn't in Halo 4, and Oddball doesn't really fit any kind of neutral team play that's kind of like territorial. So I like having this kind of game type back in. What about you guys? Is neutral flag and Assault kind of things that you missed from the game type set?
I would say Ricochet is pretty similar to Assault. It's kind of new for the ball spawns in the middle and then you throw it at the goal.
Yeah, but with neutral,
since when? Yeah, I remember it was in Halo 2, Halo 3. Was it in Reach?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't remember it in Reach then.
It's sort of a thing of what got emphasized. I don't feel like Assault was ever... I can't remember playing a game of Assault in matchmaking. It's sort of one of those things that every game they sort of have the game types they focus on.
I can't remember in Reach, at least. I can remember in Halo 3 and 2, but...
I think it was in Reach.
Yeah, but I don't remember playing it matchmaking all that often.
No. But, so, the thing with the Assault, though, is you have to go in and actually plant it. But yeah, I guess yes. Ricochet kind of brings some of the similarities back to Halo 4, at least. But I like seeing a classic game type kind of brought back.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Kind of as in this flavor. It kind of begs the question of why do they remove certain game types anyways. I understand like there's certain dev times that they have to make up with everything, but it's kind of odd to think for some of the game types that's currently been throughout the Halo franchise, why take some of them out?
Well, I think there's something to be said for just what experiences overlap each other and are sort of duplicative. Because as much as I love Assault, the difference between Assault and one-sided flag and Ricochet, there's a pretty big bleed through on all of them. And so I can see where in terms of, all right, we're going to devote all our times to maintaining this and testing it on all these maps and making sure all of them support it, you would try and nail it down a little bit tighter, have fewer.
I suppose, yeah. But I can understand for matchmaking, but just for customs and everything, there's certain things that you want to be able to try with the newer maps that they come out with. So, anyways, it's just a thought. Moving down the bulletin, we have the Community Forge Ricochet Contest, which was put on by Certain Affinity. They went through some of the maps that were submitted, and excuse me, Knockyard, one of the community cartographers over at Griffball Hub, went through some of the maps and has kind of selected some that are going to be chosen for as finalists for the Ricochet Forge Contest. So we have the winners here for the final 6. It's going to be Parallax, which looks kind of asymmetrical in a way. I'm not sure how the bases are laid out, but judging by the picture, it looks like it. Well, it looks like it could be symmetrical depending on how the bridges are. Kind of open on one side and a little closed off on the other. It's on Forge Island. I think all of these are on Forge Island except for one, which is on Impact. So the next one is Butter, which is an interesting name for a map.
Butter
Interesting
by
name we've
fat.
seen in matchmaking before.
Come on, that's an awesome gamer tag.
Yeah.
Butter
Purely
by purely fat.
Yeah. This one's kind of a smaller, closed-in arena type map. Lots of open space on the ground. It kind of has a similar layout to Impact in that there's some side passageways and underneath bridges and everything. There are some places to hide. It looks like in the middle and off to the sides, and then a goal in the back of either base. So it's this one's completely symmetrical. It looks like on both sides. That one is going to be. Let's see. Out of those two so far, I think I still prefer Parallax just from how it looks. Next one is going to be Hekau. Is that how you would say that?
I have no idea.
Hekau. Hekau.
That's
I'm guessing that's what it's going to be. This one's interesting. It has two bases that are kind of encompassed by the semicircle pieces that you can get in the Impact Forge palette. The goals are inside. There's a little glass floor that you can put in the one building that's on there when you go into Forge, and that's on tops. And then there's walkways out. There's a walkway out to one side that connects both the bases, and you can also go on the Meteor and go up another ramp. And then there's this big kind of spiral thing in the middle. So there's a few places where you can get into some close combat, and it looks like those are areas where you're going to go and try to retrieve the ball. And there's completely open areas in the rest of the maps. In the rest of the map when you try to get to the other bases. The design for this one's very interesting.
yeah.
And
this
Aesthetically
one,
pleasing in a way.
I mean, compared to all the other maps, this one feels like it had to be on Impact just because they made such a big use of all the curved pieces.
Yeah.
Mhm. Well, it's almost like it fits in the environment too. If you think of kind of how a possible like space outpost would be made or something like that, it kind of looks like it fits the terrain.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's cool.
So that one, obviously, since it's open, there's going to be a lot of back and forth with it, and I can see a lot of people trying to throw balls between the cracks of the walls and the glass ceiling. So lots of throwing on that map too, probably. Breezeway is the next one. This one has some trees, some rocks in it, and a lot of kind of corridors and multi-tiered throughout the map. The screenshot they have on here doesn't really show where the hill is, so I'm guessing this is probably just like one corner of the map. But there's a good mix of just natural scenery versus just the geometry that you can get from the Forge palette. So lots of open spaces as well on that map. Firestone is the fifth one, and this one has it kind of has a pit and countdown feel to it a little bit. It's not really laid out the same way, but just by some of the Forge pieces, how they're designed, has kind of gives that feeling off. But there's this is also a symmetrical map. It's kind of segregated into different zones just based on how some of the Forge pieces are laid out. This one, I can't tell where the bases are on this one either.
The bases are, this one I actually played. The bases
Okay.
are where the right red pylons are. The bases are just past that. It's sort of like if you mixed like turf or something with the pit. It's kind of got a alleyway thing going,
Okay.
but the bases are sort of similar in spirit.
All right. How's it play? Is
They
it
play it pretty
a
well.
lot of because this looks like it would seem like it would be open to a lot of passing to players.
It definitely benefits from that, just because this one's got more elevation than you think when you're trying to throw in balls. So it actually works really nicely for trying to gently nudge people into giving up the ball.
Okay. Because based on where the rest of the map is the screenshot here one side of the map? Or is this like red base? And then there's blue base on the other side?
Yeah, you go the other side and there's the other base. This is sort of one half. It's sort of weird how they cut it in the screenshot.
So the screenshot's on the red side, basically?
Yeah.
Okay. So the goal is back there on the left then? Is that where it is? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
You can actually, I think you can sort of see it. It's really faint, hard to tell out, but behind that left.
Oh, yeah.
Is that the white outline?
Yeah, the little whitish blue thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then okay. I see it now. So that one's a pretty big map, actually. You could probably do a 6v6 Ricochet on that map.
Possible. I mean, that's the nice thing about having large maps is you can actually chuck the ball pretty far, and it will roll in if people aren't paying attention.
Well, it looks like with this one, too, it has the big pillar in the middle. So you can't exactly just throw it in.
Yeah, you can't just chuck
straight
it from
in.
end to end, yeah.
Right. That was pretty cool. It's high up there, too, or you're not... It looks like... Well, I don't know the exact curvature of the ball, but you may throw it out if you throw it up too high. So, still, I like that one so far. Out of all the maps, that one kind of takes the cake so far. But this last one is interior. This one it has kind of like an outer ring. It has different structures along the outside. And I'm guessing the inside is where a lot of the battle is going to be kind of going on for ball control and exchanges back and forth, and then a good use around the rings. So this is a good mix of, I guess, close quarters combat inside, and then a lot of just long range shooting on the outside of it. So these are going to be in the Community Forge playlist starting this coming Monday, and we're going to see. I think these maps are going to be included in the Ricochet Hub competitive ladder too. So if you guys have not heard, they've semi-opened their doors. Their forums are at least up, and we've had a couple of kind of pre-season tournaments just to test out some of the maps that are out there so far. So if you haven't had a chance to go check out Ricochet Hub, definitely go do that. They're ricochethub.com, or you can click the link on the bulletin as well. Moving on, they have the community choice poll, and it looks like from what people have favored, Shotgun Ricochet seems to be the favorite out of the Ricochet game types that people have been able to play. So, as far as, I think, predictions from last week, I think that's kind of what we thought, that Shotgun Ricochet would be kind of a crowd favorite. Personally, though, for me, it would be Legendary Ricochet, but just with the close quarters and everything, with the shotguns, I think that kind of fits a lot of people's playstyles more than the Legendary and the Quickochet. It gives a little variation of it, too. Have you guys had a chance to go into and play any of these game types? 'Cause I haven't.
Briefly yesterday, before playing Grand Theft Auto, I popped on for a little bit and played some Shotgun Ricochet. It's pretty fun.
What kind of maps was it played on? Was it some of the smaller maps, or was it regular Ricochet maps that they have already in the matchmaking?
It was the map from Halo 3.
So the pit?
The pit.
Yeah, the pit. Yeah. I only played like one game,
yeah.
so I can't really base it on one game as an experience. I mean, I had fun.
Right. Well, as far as, because with the shotguns, it kind of implies that there's going to be a lot more close quarters, but the fact that you can throw the ball into the goal, it seems like a lot of those encounters would tend to disappear a little bit. Like if you saw someone coming up with a shotgun, you would just jump up and throw it, and if you knew the angles, you would just get it in every time. And I would think that would kind of speed up the game a lot, and in some cases make games go faster.
I mean, in my limited playthrough, it turned, since shotguns are obviously not effective at range, it turned into a sticky throwing fight. And as someone who's really bad at sticking people, I was immensely annoyed by this because everyone was doing far better than me at it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not a good sticky thrower in Halo 4. I could stick in...
Yeah, those sticky grenades, they just got that weird curve that hasn't been in any other Halo previously. Like, it's just like, the grenades, it's like Spartans can't throw the grenade. I don't know, maybe it's just... it's the same thing with the tank, with the gravity on the tank round. It just throws me off so much compared to the previous Halos.
Yeah, just a little bit different in game mechanics. I think Reach for me was like the game where I could get stickies on a consistent basis. I could get sticks on people, like when they walk around corners. I could get that timing. But Halo 3 and Halo 4, it just doesn't exist. At least not for me. Last thing that they have on the bulletin before the screenshots, of course, is a fun little custom game that they're going to be doing for October 30th and October 31st in celebration for Halloween. And that is a game type called Smashing Pumpkins. And it's an oddball variant where the ball carrier is going to turn bright orange, or as they dub it in the bulletin, pumpkin orange. And it's actually, according to them, a color that's not even available to be chosen as a team color or in the color palette. So you have essentially 24 or however many hours this thing goes on to be a bright orange color for a limited time. So if you want some bright orange screenshots, you definitely want to hit up this playlist and get some screenshots in there. And then, of course, everyone that's chasing the ball carrier has hammers, hence the smashing of said pumpkin, and you're going to be green. So look forward to that coming on October 30th and October 31st. They were going to have an update to fix some of the Champions Bundle issues that have been reported by people. They said they have run into some unexpected issues with it, and with the whole loadouts resetting, they are aware of it, and they are trying to work that as fast as possible. So they are aware of it. They are working on the fix, so just give them some time, and they'll get it out the door when they can. There's also going to be a possible CSR reset come the anniversary of Halo 4. And they mentioned a CSR program that they announced in the September 18th bulletin, but I don't exactly remember what that was for. But I think it was like a special way to determine CSR and to match people up, and they're moving that to the Team Slayer playlist, which has the largest 4v4 audience out of all the playlists so far. And with that is going to possibly come the CSR reset come November. So if you do follow CSR that closely for your Spartan, then just note that the reset is coming. And they did talk about that at where did they announce CSR? Was that PAX East? Yeah. So they did mention it, that they were going to do possible resets, and this is probably going to be the first one of a few that we'll see come down the pipeline. I wouldn't anticipate too many more with the announcement of Halo 5 already out there, though. Screenshots for this week. The theme is oddball, in light of the, I guess, kind of related to the Ricochet stuff. And, let's see, going through the 10 screenshots, I'll go ahead and pick my favorites first. I like Oddball by Cat Wolfest. Vanquished by Reclaimed Halo. He's back again. He's back in the screenshots. And I'm going to say I Got the Ball by Mr. Fancy Bones.
I like Disappear by Colon Shot. It just kind of it's got the particle effects, and it just looks like the Statue of Liberty holding the torch up out there. So it just kind of got that iconic look. That's my favorite of the two. I like the Unlock Bobblehead by No Sleep. It's just kind of it speaks to me. I don't know why, and just because I like odd looking ones. I like the one by Cranium Blitz by it's called Cranium Blitz by Cat Wolfest. So yeah, I don't know. It just kind of, that one just looks odd to me, but I like it.
It's interesting. I didn't even know that's what the trail looked like on the Oddball. I didn't know there was a certain geometry that was in there. I thought it was just kind of a trail of like a blue light. I didn't know there was a certain structure to it. That's kind of interesting. Cranium Blitz. Yeah, what about the rest of you guys? What do you think of the screenshots for this week?
I like I got the ball. I don't know why. This looks cool.
Because Mark 5.
Actually, yeah.
Because Mark 5.
The answer is simple.
Yeah.
Interesting. Got some fans of the Mark 5 in here, I guess, huh?
I love
Oh,
Mark 5.
Very nice.
I'm just always amazed. I just generally gravitates towards the one that I have no idea how they do them. Even it's been years since Halo 3 came out and they started doing all these really cool ones, and I'm still amazed that you can sort of force all these special effects in the game.
Yeah. Well, especially with like explosions, and for Halo 3 it was okay, where to put the regenerator, where to put the energy drainer. The bubble shield ones were kind of gave an interesting texture overlay to some of the different screenshots that we saw for those. And then, of course, you had the flare. That blasted flare. It's kind of pretty much useless. At least in matchmaking. More of an annoyance, really. But anyways.
No.
So let's move on to, I guess, the main reason why we're here to talk to tonight. And that's going to be Glasslands. So for those of you who are kind of not up to speed with the books and are looking to read them, you may want to skip the rest of this podcast and go read Glasslands first, because we're going to be talking about anything and everything that we can possibly think of for the book tonight. So you have been forewarned for spoilers. If you do not want to hear them, turn back now and come back to this podcast when you have read the book. With that said, let's get into Glasslands. The book is...
Dun dun dun.
dun dun dun. The book picks up pretty much where Ghosts of Onyx left off, and it starts off with Halsey, Mendez, and the other Spartans that they've pulled along with them into one of the shield worlds that they found. That's actually what Onyx was a shield world. And they see them walking through some like Forerunner structured corridors, and they're looking for pretty much anything at this point. If we remember in Ghosts of Onyx, they were pretty much running away from Covenant, and who was it? It was Kurt, right? Who closed the portal or
Stayed behind.
Yeah, stayed behind.
That's where the whole Spartans never die line came from.
Is it really?
Yeah, that was the first reference to it.
No. The missing in action thing? Or just Spartans never die?
He said to the elite general, he said to the elite general, don't you know Spartans never die? And then he, minor spoiler, for people that still haven't read Ghosts of Onyx, blew him up with a nuke and sealed the hole.
Well, we're figuring by this point, if people are still listening, it's spoiler. So, yeah, don't worry about saying spoilers from now on.
Spoilers on a 7-year-old book now?
Hey, man, never know. Some people don't read books for years later.
This is true.
So, just getting that out of the way. Minor spoiler.
Yeah. That's why you guys are here, to kind of help bring up that extra stuff that I'm not too well in tune to. Because it's been a while since I read the book. It's been a few months. So I'm kind of going off of some synopsis from the Halo Wiki. So kind of spark noting it for the most part. So I'm pretty much
Hold on, let me make some changes then.
We're on live right now, correct? On Twitch?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. I had some people
Sorry, I already have the page loaded. So any edits you make, I'm not going to see unless I refresh the page. Dun dun dun.
Page.
Dun dun dun. Yeah, so that's pretty much where Ghosts of Onyx left off, and where we pick up with Glasslands. And there's a lot of other things that is going on, of course, with the dynamic between Halsey and Mendez, and of course we see a little bit of this in Ghosts of Onyx, where She basically feels backstabbed by Mendez, and there's this whole discussion between them about kind of the ethics of how the Spartan 3 program was run and everything, and it starts to blow up as they kind of walk through the SHIELD world and just kind of exploring a little kind of tit-for-tat thing here and there, just kind of old wounds, I guess, that have just kind of opened up, and new ones getting created as well. The exasperation for a reason?
I
just
think
stretching?
it would be really... Oh, yeah, sorry, stretching too. And I think it would be really awesome if 343, hint, hint, created a Mendez journal to go alongside the Halsey journal to find out why Mr. CPO Mendez has suddenly had a change of heart. Was it suddenly a change of heart? Was it, towards the Spartan program and Dr. Halsey? Or was it, something that built up over the years? And I think it would really be a cool kind of companion guide to help fill in that kind of gap that left people wondering what's going on with the Halsey dislike.
I think realistically they're more likely to do a Miranda journal because they actually mentioned that in Halsey's journal. And it seemed like they were kind of hinting at the possibility that Miranda Key's journal does exist somewhere out there in the Halo universe.
Sure. Well, some kind of companion, but I mean something that touches on why, Mendez and the majority of the, the Halo, the UNSC doesn't like Dr. Halsey all of a sudden. I mean, they kind of hinted at it in the earlier books, but it's just kind of now really up front in your face, that Dr. Halsey's not the superstar anymore.
Right. Well, and I think obviously there's a reason for that, and we'll get to that in a little bit. They do go into the book goes into detail of how that kind of came to light in the first place. But kind of going back to where we were with Halsey and the Spartans, they're essentially looking for some food and sustenance to kind of help keep them alive for the time being until they can figure out where exactly they are, what they can do to possibly get out or contact someone else. So they're walking through some hallways, and just as they're going through kind of some big open fields, they find the hallways, and they're dark, of course, and they kind of spread out and look for just whatever they can find. During that, the book jumps next to a former human colony, New Lionelli?
New Clenethly, I think it's phonetically spelled.
With 2 L's, it's Cleneth. What?
Cleneth.
Clendathu? What?
Yeah, Clendathu, Klingon.
What?
In the audiobook, it's pronounced Cleneth. Oh, god damn it. It's pronounced Clenethly. Clenethly. Like Cleneth.
That's not how it's spelled whatsoever.
No sense whatsoever.
I know, but that's how it is in the audiobook, so I'm just going by the audiobook.
Liza Minnelli?
Liza Minnelli, there you go.
Anywho, we see...
Milli Vanilli?
Wow.
I just call it New Linelli. That kind of makes sense.
I'll go with whatever you feel like. I'm just going from the audiobook version.
I haven't listened to the audiobook version, so I'm going to say New Linelli. Just, yeah. And we have a meeting between Captain Serin Osman and Professor Evan Phillips, and they're actually meeting with a elite named by the name of Avu Medtelkam. So that becomes a prominent figure that we start to track through here, and he used to be a field master.
Fleet master. Yes.
Yep.
Field master.
Field master, fleet master.
Yeah.
And
master of ceremonies.
He has a certain belief that some of the things that are going on with the new elite order, what the Arbiter is doing, is kind of traitorous to the former Sangheili religious beliefs behind the Forerunners and everything. So they're kind of making some deals with the UNSC to help kind of curb some of that. And there's, of course, discussions between Osman and Telkam to basically help let's see. They're providing weapons for the it's the servants of the abiding truth, and in return they're basically promising to not bother humanity for an indefinite amount of time.
And humanity won't bother them because we have our own problems to deal with.
Well, we'll see how true that is.
Okay, well, that's the premise of their little deal in the book anyways.
Yeah, so it starts off where it's kind of like this whole peace agreement where it's like, if you help us, we won't bother you, and likewise. So there's, I guess we have two different fronts now, because we know from Halo 3 there's kind of been a deal cut with the UNSC and the elites to try to help fight against the Flood, and what the Prophets did with trying to activate the Halo rings, and of course the events of Halo 2 kind of opened up some people's eyes to the fact that these are actually destructive rings, and they're not any enlightenment things that the Prophets are falsely advertising. So we have a couple of different arrangements that's going to be coming out throughout the book as well. As far as the agreement goes, both sides come to terms, and as far as I guess the Arbiter and his folks know, this meeting never happened, and I guess from the UNSC side of things, the agreement never happened as well. So we're starting to see the dark sides of Oni here. So we've kind
of seen their dark side
the Spartan
a lot
program
before.
Should be an indication of what Oni's capable of.
Or every story where the evil Oni people are in the background.
For people that have actually read the books before, because there's not really a mention of the Spartans being kind of designed to fight the insurrection in the games, is there?
Until Halo 4 now.
Yeah, not until Halo 4.
Not until Halo 4, yeah.
BT dubs.
Well, even then, it's not...
Well, in that...
It's kind of briefly touched... Well,
whoever's interviewing Dr. Halsey at the beginning specifically says, you created the Spartans to fight insurrectionists, not to fight the Covenant.
Yeah, that's true. So that's kind of the first glimpse. So this is kind of going a little bit more... If you haven't read any of the Halo books before this one, and you're just kind of catching up now with some of the later books, possibly because of with the game you're required to, then you're going to see a lot of dark sides of Oni throughout the rest of the Kilo 5 trilogy.
And you'll get a much more full experience for the Halo 4 game if you've caught up with the books.
Yes. Unfortunately, the way the Halo 4 campaign was made is you kind of had to read the books in order to figure out what was going on in some certain areas. So the things with the Didact, you kind of needed to read Cryptum and Primordium in order to get a good feel for why you're actually fighting the Didact in the first place. Because other than that, you're just kind of lost and you don't know why you're fighting this being otherwise. So, yeah. And this is actually, compared to some of the stuff that Eric Nyland has written for the other books and some of the other authors of the Halo franchise, this one, at least in my opinion, fits in very well with the writing style of the other books. What do you guys think? I mean, it's a little bit different, but it fits a little bit more to that militaristic structure that we've seen in things like Contact Harvest and First Strike.
What I think is so... Go ahead, Laird.
I was just going to say, we should probably, if anybody here has author biasness, we should probably just leave that out now before we start going in, because there's a lot of people that prefer Nyland or other authors to the Kilo 5 Karen Travis, so let's just leave that part out and do non-biased discussions.
See, for me, I'm just happy to get a different perspective on the Halo universe from any author. Like, even if I don't necessarily like that perspective, I'm still happy to have different takes on this fictional universe out there for people to read and enjoy. And so, for me, you were saying that Karen Travis kind of continued that militaristic style, and to me, I don't agree with that. I think what she did was, I think she was the first author to really take a look at the universe and dive into it as if these characters were real people and these were real locations and real, historical events. And she did a much more appropriate treatment of the characters and their inner turmoils and actually realistically reacting to the situations that they had been in over the course of the war. I think she lent so much to the characters that had been created by Bungie and Nyland and just took them to a whole other level.
Definitely feels less heroic than Nyland.
Mm-hmm.
I feel that she gave the first inklings that Spartans were actually human and had human problems, and she kind of humanized, the Spartan character that's introduced later on. We'll get to that, I'm sure, but that was the first time I felt that Spartans were, we knew they were human and they had human emotions and whatever, but this was like the first interaction other than, occasionally the Spartans would do this hand gesture to smile. This was the first time they actually got that, hey, we're human, we have problems too, just like everyone else.
It's like Nyland established that in The Fall of Reach, and then as soon as he established it, says, but don't worry, we're not going to touch on any of that. They'll deal with that after the war's over.
I kind of agree with Isaac, just that, I love Nyland, and I think as a whole, there's many, I think if you just looked at their straight writing, Travis, Nyland, and even Staten have a lot in common. It's just what they choose to focus on. And like he said, I wouldn't say that they never delved into the Spartans' inner turmoil or the characters in Nyland's books. The difference to me is that I think Travis does it, with some exceptions, does it in a more interesting manner. Because I know one of the things that, for me, always held me up with The Fall of Reach was, God, Master Chief's kind of whiny. And there was always like this slight disconnect to me that we never really saw any of that stuff. Even with Halo 4, you never really got the same sense that this was the same character to me. And whereas I felt that Travis was asking, to me, like I talked about briefly how some people think that there's no place left to go in the Halo universe. To me, the thing that really surprised me reading this book was she said things that I had never really thought about. Like Telcam's mentions, they say, you were going to blow us all up with the Halos, like they're weapons of mass destruction. And he says, you guys say that the Forerunners all got killed off, but your own gods, you say that they died and came back. Like, how's it any different? I'm like, I never thought about that. Like, we're so used to stupid Covenant, doing these things, they're all crazy about their gods. But that was something that really put them in a different perspective to me. And I can see it from their perspective, and that makes a lot more sense. And I would never have thought about it if I hadn't read this book.
Yeah, there's lots of different kind of connections that you can make, or similarities between the Sangheili and humans. There are some distinct differences that kind of set them apart too.
And that's actually one of the interesting things about this book is the treatment of the Sangheili has been changed a lot over the course of Halo's history. And Travis was delving much deeper, obviously, into the phonetics of their language and everything, which of course isn't upheld in the games. Even if you look at their language in Halo 4, in the book it says they can't pronounce P's, but they're very clearly, P's and plosives.
Yeah. Jewel yells progress.
Yeah. And that's just something that kind of, as they progress, they're going to figure out if they want to adhere to that and keep those languages consistent or just,
but it also, before this book especially, aside from, I guess, the duel, you sort of got the treatment of elites was always sort of uneven in that, on one hand, they were crazed zealots who would, not pick up a human weapon and would rather just beat people to a pulp until they died. And then the more pragmatic elites we saw later on, and it's never seemed like there was any attempt to sort of combine them, or at least treat it like there's the old sci-fi trope of how everyone, they're monocultures on all these planets, like the Klingons are all crazed warlike guys. There aren't any pacifist vegans on that planet at all.
There's no barbers, there's no people.
That sense. And here they go a lot further into treating, yes, these are elites, but they all have different goals, ideas about their own culture. and where things are, well, they all are warriors, but this is the reason why, and this is also why it's a bad thing. They go into a lot more of the ramifications of it. Just feels a lot more justified.
Yeah, it feels realistic, and then on the other hand, it also opens up more opportunities for future writers. So it works twofold.
Plus, there's that.
Huh?
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, there's that whole fact now that we see about Sangheili society now that now that the war is over, and we're finding out that there's too many warriors and there's not enough farmers and not enough different positions that Sangheili would normally never do because of the client covenant races like jackals or Kigyar and Ungoi and brutes, or what are brutes called again? I can't remember. Jilharani. That bad pronunciation. Jabroni. Anyways, normally they would be the ones that were out in the fields, growing their food, doing this, doing that, and Jules and Dama's wife, Raya, is basically sitting there saying that the Sangheili need to become independent because in 6 months or a year, their ships are gonna start breaking down, and their food's gonna start running out because they haven't done this for generations and generations. So they need to start learning how to redo this. Otherwise, without the Covenant, they're just gonna be, stuck in the Dark Ages and starving.
Yeah, and I think that's another thing that speaks to Travis's I think skills as a writer. I know lots of people disagree with her viewpoints, but I don't think you can argue that she's a bad writer. But just that, to me, a lot of this book felt like, if you had told me, and then the war's over, and everything after the war's over is actually more interesting, I wouldn't necessarily have believed you, but I think she does a good job in making it feel, once again, like real, like, oh, well, we've stopped killing each other in mass, but no one knows really what's going on. All these people with different agendas are going on, and the peacetime is a lot more dynamic and textured than usually. It's the stories, we've beat the bad guys, that's it, roll scene. And that's not how it works in the real world.
Yeah.
Sorry, the word I was trying to figure out for all that mumbling I did was the logistics of real life is what, she needs to, or what she said, basically, the truck's got to keep going, the guy driving the truck needs to drive the truck, he's got to get it to the grocery store. Basically, if the society breaks down, the society we know is going to fall apart. And, they need to relearn that.
Yeah, and it's cool seeing how they start repurposing war assets, like some of the, the Revenant is being used just for transportation, and there's all these broken down vehicles that they're repurposing.
That one Sangheili general or high-ranking Sangheili had a warthog.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, it creates a contrast between the Sangheili that would never touch human technology, and then the Sangheili who, again, are more pragmatic and would be willing to, do what is necessary. But I love the way that it kind of shows that their society is slowly becoming more accepting of humanity, even while these sects on the side continue to have all these issues.
Yeah, and there's a lot of just dynamic between seeing how some of the Sangheili are still trying to hold on to some of those older beliefs, but at the same time you see a lot of different kind of leaders convince people that, or convince other Sangheili that we need to change this at least for now and become, like you guys said before, independent again.
I think the most interesting thing to me is how, as more and more time goes on, the elites become, and not necessarily in a bad way, but they become more and more humanized. Sometimes it's a little awkward, like when they start using human phrases and stuff, or what was it when every other paragraph they're saying, as the humans would say.
Oh, thank goodness I'm not the only one that was thinking about that.
It would have been fine if one character did it once, but they were doing it all the time. And for a society that has for so long rebelled against everything that humanity represents, it doesn't make sense that would already be so ingrained in their culture, or to the point where they can just reference it like that. Obviously, that was kind of
But was it
super- Arbiter.
Telcam or Jul Mdama that said that? Because wasn't Telcam some kind of language specialist or something?
He was, but it still didn't make sense that considering he despised humanity so much that he would be so fond of it, I guess.
Fair enough.
I do think it was partially
different.
I think it was partially there just to drive home the interesting thematic point, even though I think things like that were overdone, that in order to win, the elites basically have to become more human-like, and that means more cunning, more underhanded, and it's not something that comes easily to them, but
Right,
it's sort of this...
Because they're all about kind of the honor,
Yeah.
dying with honor and honoring your ship.
Samurai. Code of
Yeah,
the
That
Samurai.
doesn't quite work
And-
in the new world.
Yeah, and they're starting to... We see that when at least Jewel gets a glimpse of what's going on behind the scenes when he gets captured, that the humans are devious little bastards.
Go humanity.
Yeah. And we start to see at least some influence where we see the Sangheili realize that some of the honor that they adhere to is more of a detriment to them with what they are dealing with the humans, and they're starting to kind of not exactly break away from completely, but are starting to adapt to that way of thinking. And they're a little bit more open to possibly doing it themselves. And we see little influences of that through the abiding truth and what Jewel ends up doing as well. And we can kind of see that dictate a little bit in Halo 4 with what we see Jewel doing in Spartan Ops. Garrett, you said something earlier, but you got drowned out.
I didn't.
Oh, you did?
Was that Isaac?
Was that Isaac?
Well, I was just going to continue saying that I think it does very interestingly tie back to anyone who's watched Star Trek, like Dave said, and the Klingon culture. The elites are not just this society of total warriors, and that's like the only rule, which is what you would have expected from early Halo fiction. But as the fiction goes on, you kind of get to know more and more of the elites and get to hear more and more of their perspectives on life. And you realize that warlike mentality is something that their society has forced on them, but it's not necessarily what they personally all believe.
Right. Let's see. As
Next
far as... Yeah. Well, I was kind of thinking about just going through the book sequentially, but I think it's going to be easier just kind of jump around between different topics. But let's go back to the Shield world and with the other Spartans and Halsey and Mendez and everything. So there's a point where who is it? Lucy?
Yes.
Yeah. Lucy is one of the people that is scouting ahead, and she slips into kind of the secret corridor, and with all the Forerunner technology, they have their like magic walls and everything. So she gets lost into a Forerunner hangar, and she accidentally kills a Huragok in just strict reaction. And she actually goes through a couple of series of trying to communicate with the Huragok, and at one point they even got frustrated with that they couldn't fix her vocal issue, which was pretty much just her holding back some stuff that happened in... if you read Ghosts of Onyx, there's a certain part where...
PSTD.
PTSD.
Sorry,
it's PTSD, but what was the cause of it?
Pegasi, where they jumped off the cliff and their Spartan division was wiped out.
That was it.
That Operation something?
Torpedo? Was it Torpedo?
Torpedo, yeah.
So yeah, there were what, 6 or 9 at the time?
9.
9? I think. Okay.
Yeah.
9?
And
Or
it
was
was.
Anyways, yeah.
I think it
young
was
age.
9, and it was just a shock, and it pretty much just shocked her into never speaking again. And they fiddled around with trying to figure out what was wrong with her, and they finally got to talking to her through some like display and other equipment that was in the hangar, and finally got to talking to her, and she's trying to help. She's trying to convince the Huragok to let her communicate with the outside world, and let them know that they're here. And when they say no, they try to get. She tries to get in contact with the other team, and at first they say no, but eventually she talks them down to letting her take them to the others and convinces them not to shoot the Huragok.
She was communicating because this is a Microsoft based property with their brand new Microsoft Surface Pro UNSC edition that 343 is gladly donating to all the people on this podcast. Product
I
placement.
wish. If only that were true.
Wouldn't say no.
Yeah, wouldn't say no to that, for sure. So, after they group back up, though, Dr. Halsey starts to get at the Huragok and asking lots of questions about what the facility is, how it's controlled, how it's maintained, and starts to really dig into getting in contact with the outside world and trying to convince the Huragok that it's safe. And at one point, she threatens the Huragok by pointing a pistol at, what was it, Prone to Drift?
Prone to Drift, yeah.
Is the one that's currently out there. And Lucy got so fed up that she punched Halsey's arm. I think she broke it.
Not arm. Face. She uppercut her.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Gave her a black eye.
By uppercutting her?
Yeah.
That's kind of weird.
Sending, I believe, I'm sure I'm going to butcher this, but I believe the quote was, uppercut her, sent a shock up her spine and her head back. And, it wasn't eye, it was nose, because there was a trickle of blood that came down her nose. I believe that's what happened afterwards.
I don't even think they went into that much detail, because I remember reading that and thinking, wait a minute, because Spartan just punched a non-augmented human and they just got a black eye?
Yeah, well, it was Kelly or Fred or someone that came over and then was going to rip a strip out of Mendez for what happened with Lucy and anyways, sorry, that's off detail. Regardless of where she got hit pretty bad, and she's a small Spartan compared to the rest.
But either way, still Spartan, still augmented, and I think the interesting thing is that for Halsey to be able to walk away from that, Lucy, realistically, I'm sure this might not have been considered by Karen Travis, but realistically, the Spartan would have definitely had to pull the punch.
Well, yeah, I mean, if Spartan 3s are even half, there's supposedly, because of Ghosts of Onyx, not supposedly, according to the definition, they're 3 times as strong as a fit human. That probably would have broken her neck, if she had hit her as hard as she did.
It's like the old Spider-Man comics.
Can kill you.
Yes. The punch is only as strong as the plot needs it to be.
Well, no, they always, in the original Spider-Man things, whenever they had Peter Parker fighting like his high school bullies, they have all the word bubbles like, I gotta pull my punch, can't show him seriously how strong I am.
Well, yeah, that's what I was saying. It's only as strong as the plot requires. Like, if Lucy needed to, take her head off with a single punch because
Fatality.
That's the only way to save, all the Spartans, well then, she'd hit her and her head would have come off, I guess that's what I was trying to get at.
Oh, yeah.
Now I'm trying
Plot
to
device, Mr. Photo. Plot device.
Plot shields.
So after the incident with Halsey, she actually starts to retaliate at Mendez and starts to bring up a few of the topics that they had been talking about going through the whole shield world and everything, of how that Mendez, the way that he engineered his Spartans was completely out of line, and with all the chemical imbalances and emotional imbalances that would cause something like this to happen in the first place. And they rile at it for a few minutes before Fred comes in and breaks up the fight. So that's lovely. We don't see much of that conflict anymore because Halsey gets taken away eventually. But do you think that there's ever a point where Mendez actually feels bad about what happened? I can't remember if they actually mentioned that or not.
I think they don't. It's unfortunate that we get a lot of time in Halsey's mind and Lucy's mind, but we don't get any time really spent with Mendez. But yeah, it is sort of interesting that they sort of spar back and forth, Halsey and Mendez, about sort of who's the worst person almost, but they never really give us much into why Mendez, like if he feels that somehow the Spartan 3s are because they're orphans or something, that it was better or anything like that. They don't really give you a concrete reason because we don't know what he's actually thinking, which is unfortunate.
Well, so Laird, you were the one that made the comment about seeing a possible Mendez diary or something like that? Or who said that?
Sorry. I did. I was sorry. I thought I had my mic muted.
That's all right.
Yeah, no, I mean, because we kind of see, like, you know, way back in the fall of Reach, right? Mendez is all chipper and, you know, he wants to train the Spartans and didn't really have any objection. And, you know, they worked for, 10 years with the Spartan 2s and Halsey, and there was no problems there, but, and then he goes off and he does it again, and he has no problem, 1, 2, 3, training 3 Spartan 3 classes, with Kurt, and then all of a sudden
doesn't he mention that he's like getting tired of doing that to kids in Ghosts of Onyx
meat grinders, the meat grinder syndrome. But the thing is, what finally, I mean, supposedly losing Lucy is what almost, broke his back and, started him down the path of screaming at Halsey. But, I mean, it just would make it much more sense, like, if there was, say, a Mendez journal saying, he's going down this gradual path of, just something that would explain why he's going down this path. Is it the loss of all these soldiers under his command that he's trained? It's just taking a toll, the loss on humanity. Is it because Halsey, did he have moral objections early on and he brought them up with Halsey, during the Spartan 2 program? It's all those kind of questions that need to be answered to find out why Mendez just absolutely, I know this is kind of a PG rated podcast, but why absolutely Mendez hates the out of Halsey. It just needs to be elaborated on more somehow.
Yeah, I think Mendez in general just needs to be explored more, like through any format.
Well, yeah, because there's lots of areas, because we see him a lot in the first trilogy of books. I mean, he was basically their life coach for the original Spartan 2s, and then going and actually being recruited to create the Spartan 3s, you would think there'd be a lot of dynamic there to explore with Mendez and some of his backstory as well, and how his involvement in the Spartan program may have influenced certain things. It'd be cool to see that kind of aspect, or just have so how Contact Harvest is kind of a book that's a good focus on
Sergeant Johnson.
Yeah, Johnson. I think it would be cool to have a book similar like that for Mendez.
Well, exactly, like that. I said a Mendez journal because I don't know if you could do a whole Mendez book, but I would love to see what Mendez did between, Fall of Reach and training Spartans and Spartan 3s and interactions like that, because supposedly Mendez went off on a bunch of tours of missions fighting the Covenant, not just training Spartans. I mean, there's a lot of material that could explain why he has that white-hot hate now for Dr. Halsey all of a sudden.
Or even before he started training the Spartans would be interesting to read more about, too.
Yep. Is he a Spartan 1 like Johnson was? I mean, you never know. That could be... You need Spartans to train Spartans. That's been a mantra since the early days of the Spartan program, or Spartan 3 program. So, would that be a surprise that Halsey grabbed a Spartan 1 candidate, possibly, if he was a Spartan 1? Orion Project candidate?
Yeah, for Johnson.
Well, not Johnson. I was thinking maybe Mendez. All of a sudden, we find out that he was an original Orion candidate. Maybe he was a washout candidate or something, and that's why he's all of a sudden upset, with, because he went through the same process as the, this is all speculation and something I always wanted to see. It would explain if he was a Spartan 1 or Orion Project candidate. He went through the same Spartan, same kind of training augmentation as the Spartan 2s and 3s, and he saw all his buddies die in the Spartan 1 project, and and the Spartan 2s, and say when he got finally the Spartan 3s, and he's training them, that all that buildup could be what kind of turned him against Halsey. Kind of like, for whatever reason, Palmer has a dislike for scientists. It could be, he could have had that buildup from he volunteered for the Spartan 1s, and, the scientists did that to him. And then he watched the scientists do it again to the Spartan 2s, and he stood by it, and the Spartan 3s, and I don't know. Just something, I have no idea what it needs to be that explains the animosity, but something has to be done to explain why he just snapped all of a sudden in Glasslands.
I think part of it has to do with kind of how Halsey treated the Spartan 2s, and it was more, I don't know, because there was an interesting dynamic between the Spartan 2s and Halsey. Halsey was definitely a mother figure to them, but there was also a certain kind of, I don't know what words to really describe it, but she was making she was creating something that she knew would go into war and didn't want to necessarily get that attached to, where Mendez was like personally responsible for the Spartan 3s, and he knew that they were disposable and everything, and kind of knew about some of the stuff that he was doing, and I guess getting to see the other side of, because he essentially took Halsey's role for the Spartan 3 program.
Along with Kurt, yes.
Yeah, along with Kurt. So I think part of that was him trying to justify the stuff that he was doing was right versus the stuff that Halsey was doing was wrong for some reason. And I think that may be one of the reasons why we see him kind of pop, especially with Halsey. Yeah, because they've always had history.
Yeah, I know, but that's kind of like, very hypocritical, because he's like ripping into the Halsey.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
His moral reasons, but he just did it for the last, 10 or 15 years training 15 or 20 years training, Spartan 3s to go be, disposable, suicide mission soldiers.
Right. Well, and if we look at it too, when Halsey gets arrested, Parangowski's basically telling her, well, this is kind of why doing the same thing.
And Mendez doesn't get arrested either. He's in his dress blues and goes off to, retire, train more Spartans. Who knows what he does, but he's left to go and not yanked off like Halsey was.
Yeah, wasn't there like a couple of things or one thing that Parangowski specifically pulled out as to the reason why she was putting Halsey behind bars, or basically wiping her off the face of the galaxy?
They needed her to work on it.
But there's another reason. There was another reason why they publicly made an example of.
She pissed her off.
I mean, yeah, there's the reason that she there's the forward-facing reason, and there's the fact that Parangowski just hates Halsey, but she also, by quote-unquote killing her off and bringing the Spartan Project to light, I mean, they blame it all on the dead person. It's a pretty convenient scapegoat for, yeah, we did some horrible things, but it's all this evil person's fault.
Right, but I thought there was one thing, there's one thing that I think she said that for some reason sticking out in my mind, but I can't remember that.
Well, I think they hinted that there was some personal animosity that was never specifically explained, and I think a lot of fans were questioning whether Serin Osman was actually Parangowski's daughter who was kidnapped, and Parangowski found out or something, but they never explicitly stated something like that. There's just a possibility.
Yeah, that'd be kind of a stretch.
I didn't even hear that theory. From that, when Halsey was doing the final briefing before Parangowski, sent her away to Ivanov Station or wherever it is, she sat down and she just said, "You've outlived your usefulness. That's why I can. I'm doing this because I can." I believe that was the line. So I mean, there was just that hate. That's why she did it. I mean, that's why real life. I mean, life isn't fair. I mean, there's lots of people out there that do things to people that shouldn't be done, and they get away with it. That's why Mendez is walking free, because Parangosky likes Mendez, Osman likes Mendez, but they don't like Halsey. So Mendez is wherever Mendez is, and Halsey's, shot and lost an arm and living with the Covenant now.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of reading through that last chapter, seeing if I could find out what that thing stuck out. And the funny thing, too, is that while they were in the S.H.I.E.L.D. world, Halsey actually, before having contact outside of the S.H.I.E.L.D. world, she was able to convince them to do that. And actually looked it up. She did get punched in the arm, by the way.
Was the arm?
Yeah. It said
okay.
it's in a shockwave up her arm. So
I think it sent a shockwave up Lucy's arm, I believe, is the. Anyways, it's not the point.
She had the Hergok actually making design improvements in some of the stuff that she had in her tablets. So the Hergok were actually constructing pelicans with slip space abilities.
That's a different book. Next book. Yeah, next book.
No, because
it's in the Thursday War. Trust me.
Yeah, I don't remember.
But she was having. So what was she having designed in?
What she had was, I believe, what you're referring to is where they went into a Forerunner kind of, as she described it, garage, and there was engines that they were removing off of those ships, and wanted to know if the Hergok could put them on human ships, and essentially that's how Infinity got its new engines and some of the plot.
But I thought she had them make like some quote unquote prototypes in there, and kind of that was the basis of her telling Parangosky that the possibilities were there, that they actually had designs to where they could do it.
Yes, they said, I believe the Prone to Drift said if your slip space technology is we'll just say if it's compatible, that yes, they could apply the Forerunner slip space modifications to UNSC ships. The prototype Tart Cart, I think that's what they called it, did not get its slip space engine till the Thursday War. So that's a little.
Well, yeah. Okay.
You're right. It's just in the next book that we're not supposed to discuss right now.
Okay. I thought that okay. I guess I'm getting those mixed a little bit. But anyways, she basically finds out that the Hergok are able to, or have the ability to upgrade a lot of the technology that the UNSC currently use. And as you said, it's stuff that goes into what Infinity is now. Infinity was basically designed in the S.H.I.E.L.D. world. That was named what? Trevelyan?
Sorry,
Trevelyan.
But Infinity was actually created out in our solar system in the what is that thing called? The Oort cloud. It only finally got the engines that it needed from Trevelyan.
Right. But anyways, that's for the next book. So even after all that planning of Halsey finally proving that she's actually still able to do something, and we've still skipped a lot of the book, and we'll get to it here, but Osman and the rest of the gang come and pick her up and arrest her on the spot. And of course the Spartans that were there were kind of shocked. I think the book mentioned that they had some tendency to just off Osman on the spot, but they know that they really shouldn't.
ODSTs, not Spartans.
What do you mean? I thought.
Well, you said the people that you said off Halsey, the people that wanted.
Didn't like Fred and who was the other Spartan 2 that was there?
There was Fred, Linda, Kelly, and that was it.
I thought there was part in there where they just kind of wanted to retaliate there for a second, but they didn't.
Okay, sorry, I misunderstood when you said off Halsey. I thought you were inferring
No,
that the
Osman,
Spartans...
off Osman.
Yeah, yes. Sorry. Yes,
Sorry.
there was a bit of retaliation when... what was the Spartan's name that was part of Kilo 5? Naomi slapped the... Or no, it wasn't Naomi.
No,
it was
Naomi
the
was...
ODSTs.
Yeah, Naomi was part of Osman's group.
Yeah, so when they arrested Halsey, the Spartans were going to intervene. That was... Yes, you're correct on that.
Right. And yeah, you said also that the ODSTs wanted to off Halsey too, and there's a couple of instances. I think it was was it Mal?
No, it was the Russian. Can't remember
Vaz.
his name. Vaz.
We see a part in the book where he's going down about ready to just off Halsey too, and BB actually talks him down before opening the door. So lots of dynamic and lots of, at least Oni has put Halsey in a bad light all around. Parengoski has worked her magic, and with the frustrations that Osman has too, with her being a failed Spartan too, there's just kind of this animosity towards Halsey throughout the group.
What can we have a kind of a round table discussion since we're talking about Halsey and in the light? Let's get it out there. Halsey's no saint. She took and kidnapped children and modified them and turned them into conscripted soldiers. That takes a kind of an evil to do, no matter how you might like Halsey.
Genius.
Yeah.
You know, let's just get it out there. She kidnapped kids and turned them into, for a lack of a better word, freaks, and turned them into not human.
Well, hold on. Don't say freaks, because they are the next stage in human evolution. Remember.
Okay, well that's discussion for another.
Technically, we're the
time.
freaks.
Yeah, we're now the Neanderthals compared to Homo sapiens. We're now the lesser species. But anyway, she took kids and modified them and turned them into soldiers. Halsey's no angel, no saint. Let's just get that out there.
Well, especially for the original purpose that the Spartans were created for.
Fighting other humans and insurrectionists and whatnot.
Well, and I think you can argue there that, well, is it better that you ruin the lives of a few to covertly take out a few people to save the lives of millions or whatever?
I'm not arguing the end result. Spartans saved us.
That was the reason for that whole opening part in Halo 4.
Halo 4, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm glad they addressed it.
I do think the ends justified the means. Like, don't get me wrong. Spartans totally did save humanity. Master Chief did. I just saying that, morally, Halsey is not, a compass to, those are not the morals that we should be saying are good necessarily. But, stuff like that has to happen sometimes in war to win.
There are some people I know who were saying Halsey isn't that bad, which I think is kind of a bizarre thing to say, even if she did help win the war. But I think that
and if you think about it too, she was also following orders.
Yeah, and I think she does. Well, she also got to play scientist, which is always a thing for war. They'll take anyone. Mm-hmm. But I think the thing that people totally have a right to find annoying about the book, and she does it less in later in Thursday War, but in this one it is kind of annoying that there are parts. Let's see if I can find it. Especially during Halsey's interrogation by Parengoski, where not Halsey's thoughts or not Parengoski's thoughts, but stuff that should theoretically be objective is phrased as Halsey's evil.
Yeah.
And that does get me, because then it's the author putting their own thoughts into where it shouldn't be.
It's if you look at it too, though, if you look at how Oni's trying to frame it too, it's writing in the frame of Oni's perspective.
Yeah, but still, here we go.
And whether or not you should do that in the writing style is, I'm no author. I'm not a critique. I'm not that much of a critic either. I read the book simply for the story, not for the writing style. But you do see that Oni influence in the writing, and whether or not that was
but
intentional.
That seems like a weird out for it. Like, at one point it says, here's the passage, Parangoski just waited. Halsey knew she deserved whatever was coming. And then later on, Halsey still felt a little indignation she wasn't entitled to.
Her martyrdom complex.
Yeah.
Yeah, like there's some things that just step out. Like, it's not Halsey thinking, well, yeah, I am a bad person, but I'm no worse than her or whatever, which does get brought up. But it's Travis saying she is totally guilty of this. And that there's like a couple places, especially here, but elsewhere, where it leaks out into, I think, beyond. I'm being told as opposed to being shown.
It's a little too strong for some people's palate.
It's a little too cloying and commanding, and it feels a little weird that you're being told this. And that's where it steps over the line for me. Even though I think in most places everyone at 343 and Travis hates Halsey is a little overstepped. Here, I do think some of it is warranted.
I feel like they corrected a lot of that with Spartan Ops, though. They showed that they're not that was more Travis than anything else, because in the Spartan Ops you see all the regular members of the UNSC and Oni basically doing all these terrible things and kind of forcing humanity into the galactic gutter, I guess. And Halsey's the only one standing there going like, what are you guys doing? You're like kids playing in a sandbox,
Yeah, and I definitely don't think that overall you can say that 343's treatment of Halsey has been over the top, because I was talking with one of the people on the Forward Unto Dawn forums, made the good point that the two most likable characters in Spartan Ops are Halsey. No. Halsey and Jewel, because Jewel at least has stated aims where he thinks the humans are being a bunch of jerks and trying to wipe him out, and he's doing the best to stop it. Like, they actually give him a fairly sympathetic portrait, surprisingly, in the books and in Spartan Ops. And then everyone else is kind of a jerk except for Lasky, who's like, guys, let's not kill her without a trial or anything. Like, that's not cool.
Justification, evidence, that whole due process thing,
Yeah, so I think you can definitely say that there's a much better even-handed treatment. It's just, it sort of falls apart in the end of this book.
Well,
Thorn was a decent character too.
Yeah, well, I think Thorn is, in a way, kind of the next
Master Chief.
Yeah, I really think that's kind of where it's going to be. I think if and when Halo retires Master Chief, Thorn is in a good position to kind of take a spot, because Halsey kind of started to warm up to Thorn a little bit. I mean, we don't know really the extent of that because we only had one season of Spartan Ops, but we can see that at least she's starting to accept Spartans other than her own as possibly being competent soldiers.
Yeah, but only very specific ones who have the mental capabilities as well as the physical.
Right, but I mean, she's still showing a little bit of give.
Yeah,
however small
really
it is.
He's really well set up to develop into one of the strong heroic characters, but right now he's still at the beginning of the.
Right.
I guess this wouldn't be the hero's journey, but he's at the beginning of that development.
Right.
He's kind of like John was, 25 years ago when he was leading the Spartans of Blue Team out to go catch. What's his name? Colonel.
Oh, I was going to go back further. He's like John when he was 6, playing King of the Hill with the other Spartans.
Yes,
because
for the quarter.
Literally what they're doing.
Yeah, so I think he would be in a perfect position to kind of take over that Master Chief role for the franchise if it gets to that point. And I have a feeling at some point you can only tell so much of Master Chief's story, because if you think about
I don't know, man. He's got a cool desert cloak now.
That he does.
that raggedy old looking cloak. Okay.
Forerunner poncho.
But how? I mean, yeah, you can have Chief go off on this quest for the Forerunners and everything to advance humanity, kind of like how Halsey's doing to kind of further humanity as well. But how far can you go with that singular line of story before incorporating the rest?
Well,
it would also be nice to see the other Spartan 2s that are still left.
Yeah, here's
Fred and
something
Linda in the games.
Is interesting. when it just so happens that the person who brought up this point is the voice actor for Master Chief. Because you guys probably know I got to interview him for Community Evolved. It's kind of besides the point, but regardless, he brought up an interesting comparison when I was interviewing him. He said, I asked him like basically the same question, like how long do you think Halo can go on? And his answer was, I hope it has an end, but at the same time, if you look at other franchises like Batman is still going after how many decades? And it's still compelling and it's still interesting. And like you would have thought in the beginning that Batman's story would have been worn out and he would have been done as a character, but they've still managed to find interesting places to go, you know. And I don't know if I'd be happy with that, but I would. I could see that happening with Halo. I could see that happening with Master Chief. I just think he's so iconic. I have a hard time seeing Microsoft more than anything else giving up their hold on him.
What if say, you know, theoretically, what if Halo Xbox One is Master Chief's own game and Halo 5 is now a new protagonist? You know, what if it is Thorn? What if it is a new Spartan? What if it is what if it's not even, you know, human protagonist? What if it's a full-on, you know, Forerunner?
Like an ODST thing for the Sangheili or something?
Well, I don't know. Like, what if Halo Xbox One is 343's ODST? I mean, you know, it's
and I will be so happy because I love Master Chief. I love his story. I love everything that goes on in the main games that follow his story. But I love exploring other aspects of the universe and other corners of the universe that, you know, in our heads they all exist. But you know, it's always an interesting perspective.
Sorry,
to explore.
You've always had that. You've always had that.
Never mind.
Yeah, I know books. You've always had that interaction with the UNSC, though. You haven't had really with Oni, but as far as how the Halo games and the stories have gone, you've had interactions with the rest of humanity. So I think kind of going away from that, I'm not sure how people would react in terms of like a campaign thing.
Can you imagine if they did a Splinter Cell style game where you play as an Oni agent, like embedded in enemy lines?
What was his name?
I don't think Chief would be the Oni agent, though.
Well, yeah. I mean, they could do anything.
Well, yeah. Someone on NeoGAF, on Halo GAF was saying just throughout there, hey, wouldn't it be kind of cool if there was a game where you were running around as like one of the ancient human or forerunners before during the Human Forerunner War? Like, yeah. That'd be awesome. Like, you get to see tons of Forerunners. You get to see this whole side of humanity that we've seen in the terminals for all of 2 minutes of screen time, and that's it. Like, that's completely out of the realm of Master Chief and all that stuff, but it could be completely cool.
Yeah, and then all the illiterate Halo fans would have a way of exploring what they meant in the Halo 4 terminals when they said the ancient humans.
Oh.
Well, they're not illiterates. They're Halo fans that just choose to enjoy the games only.
I call them.
Probably still don't realize that they're books.
We're above that. We're not the Halo fans that judge, right, guys? Right?
Well, as far as the game goes, there are those people that just go for the story of the game, but there has to be
if you're not reading the books, you're missing like half of what's so great about it.
You are,
I agree,
but I think
not everyone.
I think the books do supplement the games, and they're designed to be that way and designed to expand the universe. But I think if someone doesn't really want to dive in that deep to the universe and just kind of want to go along with Chief's story, then I think the story for the game should be able to be self-contained to a point. There'll always be the little references out, like we saw with the terminals in Halo 3 and stuff like that, to saying, hey, there's this other stuff if you're interested. But I don't think it needs to be to the point where you have to read the books or external fiction in order to get what's going on in the game,
no,
like
I
they
agree
did with Halo 4.
I agree with that. But yeah, Halo 4 kind of missed the mark as far as opening up to any audience.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just the campaign either. They kind of did that across the board. But
anyways, where I was trying to go with this, if Halo Xbox One is, you know, Master Chief's and 343's version of ODST, where Master Chief and whoever, you know, goes off in one direction from the main line, and Halo 5 is now, say, 10 years later, as a guess or example. Master Chief is, going on his story, and Halo 5 is, Thorn 10 years into the campaign of humanity and Forerunner and whatever develops over that period, for example. Now we get to Thorn, and he is now a seasoned Spartan 4, and, he's become a leader, for example. Maybe Palmer, well, less about Palmer the better, whatever. Thorn is now a leader in the Spartan ranks, and maybe he's the new commander, for example, and that you take on that role as Thorn down the line. Master Chief is doing his own thing, being off on a planet with dusty robes, looking for Cortana, or going renegade, or whatever it is he's doing, and now you've got that avenue to explore. There's the main trilogy, and now you've got that side quest that can fill the Master Chief is never gone from Halo, but now you can introduce new mainline characters in the main game.
Right, and I believe I mentioned this before on an earlier episode, but you can also look at, with how they designed Spartan Ops and the campaign, there's almost a good split where you could do two different storylines. You could have one where you have the UNSC going after the elites and trying to find Halsey, and continuing on researching the Forerunners and possibly looking for the other half of that key and looking for the other Halos and other Forerunner installations. And then you can have Chief, who is going on and trying to do his own quest through the Forerunners and trying to see kind of what really happened,
what they did to him to make him the next evolution, according to Halo 4, of human evolution, whatever it is that's going to lead to.
Those are two really interesting, queries for each party to pursue. I would totally be down for that. But the thing is, for all we know, Mortal Dictator, when it comes out, is going to have a totally new element that they introduced that turns all those stories on their head.
Yeah, well, since we're talking about that, I predict whatever, however it's pronounced.
Mortal Dictator.
Yes, I predict, again, for people that are listening, this is kind of infringing on the Thursday War and a little bit in the Glasslands. The main character, or one of the protagonists from this book's father, I believe, is going to attack Earth with, what was that ship called? It was in Halo 3, and it's mentioned several times in Glasslands, and it's a cruiser that the insurrectionists bought. Oh man, Pious Inquisitor.
Pious Inquisitor.
I'm pretty sure he gets his hands on this ship and goes after Earth. That's my guess. What's going on in?
Wait, was the Pious Inquisitor the one that was supposed to be carrying the Hergok to the elites?
Okay, well then. Not Pious Inquisitor.
No.
Whatever.
That was a
it's
brute
called.
ship.
Well.
Oh, that was Piety.
Anyways,
Sorry. Okay.
Yeah.
That's Piety.
The ship. We actually see the ship in Halo 3 and Halo 2. It's that map, the Covenant map. Whatever it's called.
Heretic.
Yes, that's Pious Inquisitor, supposedly, according to the fiction. So, anyways, I think that ship. The humans are the insurrectionist Sensky, I can't remember his first name, is going to get control of that and go after Earth. I think that's what is going to happen. My prediction. Sorry.
Well, that would certainly be interesting, because that would open up a whole door for another. Obviously, there's another smaller Cold War-esque insurrection going on right now, but where's that going to go?
I personally have the belief that the last book is going to be in between. Part of it's going to be in between the events of. It's going to pick up right after the Thursday War. So those events, and I believe it's going to pick up after Spartan Ops Season 1. I believe part of the novel is going to.
That would make sense. Yeah,
that's the reason they released it so late in the the fold. I mean, yes, they were releasing one a year, but they pushed back third Forerunner book. I know people are probably yelling at me right now because I can't remember the name of the title.
Silentium.
Silentium, yeah. They pushed it back because of it would have given spoilers for Halo.
Sorry, I was muted. You couldn't hear me yelling at you.
Sorry. I'm gonna let someone else talk because I've been going for a while. Someone else.
Okay, well, you just brought up a point. So, if that were to happen, the book would take place basically between 2553 and 2558. That's when Spartan Ops takes place,
yeah,
right?
2558, late 2558.
Yeah. Which is one of the few things that really I find really odd about Glasslands, especially, is that we get these great parts where, like, it's just after the main part of the fighting is stopped and people are unsure about what's going on, and then the funny scene, I find it funny where apparently just to the right of the camera for the closing cutscene in Halo are all the characters in Glasslands.
Yeah.
While Lord Hood is making a speech. Just pan over slightly. They're right there. But it was sort of weird to me that they didn't space things out, like, basically right after. I mean, and it happens in wars all the time. Like, the Germans had jet fighters and stuff that was getting developed right at the end of World War II and stuff. But it still seems kind of rushed that we've got Spartan 4s and Infinity, like, 2 months after the war's over.
Yeah.
I thought that was a sort of weird spacing. Like, you couldn't push it, like, a year after or something.
I agree with that.
I don't know.
And maybe even Halo 4 could have been later, too.
Well, I guess Halo 4, they were limited by Cortana. But I felt like there was enough time to get from Halo 3 to Halo 4, and that it didn't seem necessary to front load so much of it.
Yeah, there's also, like, a lot of just differences between the UNSC of that era and between Halo 3. It just seems kind of fast.
Well, for the games that it takes place over several months, and then you have this book that takes place over
like 2 or 3 months, basically.
Yeah.
Starts in January, ends with March, I think.
End of March.
Is it really that quick?
Yeah, because it basically ends right after the memorial at Voy.
I guess that's true, yeah.
The book Glasslands takes place between November 2552 because of the spatial anomaly thing, because they're inside Trevelyan. Sorry, that's the name they give it. What's it called? Onyx. They're inside Onyx.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's two timelines. There's the slower moving timeline for the Spartan Blue Team and Mendez and Halsey and the Spartan 3s, and then there's the R plane of time, which by the time they get to them in late February, maybe early March of 2553, time is just moving so fast inside that, they were only in there supposedly for 2 weeks, but in real time it was 5 months or 6 months.
Right. And it was interesting for whenever Halsey was talking to Perengowski, because to Halsey it was pretty much just a 20-minute
delay or something like that.
Not even that. I think it was at some points
when they were so there's that time delay we were talking about. If you guys know anything about space travel, like sending radio signals to the moon and whatever, it takes 1 second because there's the time distance and the delay. So basically what happened was when they were having that conversation between Perengowski and Halsey, there was a 20-minute delay. So when Halsey would talk, it would be in real time to her when Perengowski would respond, but to Perengowski there'd be a 20-minute lag.
Yeah, I was thinking of for Halsey, it was like she was carrying on a conversation, but to Perengowski she could respond and then go do something and then come back.
Yes, sorry, that's what I meant by lag.
I thought it was longer than 20 minutes.
I'm pretty sure it was 20 minutes according to the book.
Okay.
Someone can quote it and direct quote it if need be, I'm sure.
Right. we've talked a lot about Halsey and Perengoski. Do we want to start talking about Osman and the rest of the Kilo 5 gang?
All right, well, on that note, did anyone actually, the first time they read this book, actually identify individual members of Kilo 5? Or did they just all bleed together?
I like Vaz.
I could kind of identify him.
I felt like...
I could identify him. Phillips and Naomi were definitely...
Yeah. I mean, that's the...
Duravo was... I mean, she's the pilot, so...
I think the ODSTs
She kind of was in the background, it seemed like.
Yeah.
Compared to Mal, Vaz, and...
It's partly
BB.
because...
Come on,
yeah,
BB was awesome.
BB is, I think, one of the best characters in the Halo universe, period. Strong words. But I felt like compared to that, the ODSTs they just blurred together. And until I read the Thursday War, they didn't feel at all differentiated. They were just kind of interchangeable in my mind.
Yeah, I can see that.
I guess for the ODSTs maybe, but for Naomi and Phillips...
well, everyone else stands out. But
yeah. Okay.
The ODSTs,
so yeah,
I think, were the weak link in this book.
Right. I guess...
Which I thought it was interesting considering Travis as a writer likes spending lots of times with basically ODST. She likes the regular soldiers, but they're the most unremarkable part of this entire book. She's got so many more interesting things going on. You just kind of,
Well, in Thursday War, don't we get a little bit more of the backstory behind?
Yeah, and I think they definitely grow into realized characters, just not in this book.
There's a lot of kind of character building that takes place in Thursday War that didn't happen in Glasslands. We do see a little bit of Naomi getting or at least being offered the glimpse to see her record from when she was basically inducted into the Spartan program, but she didn't want to look at it. And we know that, I believe at the end it was Vaz, was it, that took a look at it, and then we see Vaz later explain it in Thursday War to her.
Yeah. Which also seemed a little odd to me. I think that we were talking earlier about Spartans behaving like actual human beings in this one as opposed to before, that Naomi seemed a little bit... I mean, it's fine to be a character who is weak, or like a character who is fragile, who has obviously gone through a whole lot, but it felt like there wasn't enough time to really establish why she would trust Vaz so much. Like, oh, you look at it. Like, I trust you with... That was... Especially considering how, spoiler, it gets wrapped up in the next book. It seems unnecessary. Almost like a sort of soap opera twist.
All right. I guess a little bit. I don't see it as being that much, but...
It might also just be because of comparison, because BB is such an interesting character, and Osman is at least a lot more defined, and then...
all the characters are more defined in the next book.
I'm totally blanking on what's the translator's name.
Oh, Phillips, right?
Phillips, yeah.
Yeah, Professor Phillips.
Phyllis.
Phyllis, yes.
Yeah, I mean, they're so much more interesting and just a break from everything. I mean, you didn't have a character like Phillips in the previous novels, and even with all the AIs we saw before, we didn't have a character like BB.
Yeah.
And so in comparison, the Spartan and the ODSTs are, I've seen these before already in other Halo novels.
Yeah.
Well, where we see, because at least for this book, I see Perengoski, Halsey, Mendez, and Osman as kind of the primary characters, and then secondary characters would be BB, Lucy, Fred, and then kind of tertiary. I would see Phillips as kind of tertiary, and of course, next book we see him develop a lot more. But he was interesting to watch, lay some groundwork, because trying to get back onto the book here, but we see him take a lot of interest in the elite culture and history and the artifacts there, and eventually gets invited back by the Arbiter to come visit Sangheili. So we see some character development there at least. And then Naomi, we see a little bit of her Spartan story come up with everything that's going on between Halsey and Perengoski and that whole
that whole plot
mess.
twist you get at the end, which is what I was referring to earlier on in the podcast, that, oh my god, Spartans have human problems. They're human. Oh my god, really?
That sounds like bad voiceover for a parody trailer. Spartans have human problems.
Well, and it's interesting to see throughout the duration of the book where that human problem is more identified with the Spartan 3s and what Mendez has done to change them genetically and all the extra chemicals that were put into making their Spartan 3s. And that was used by Halsey to attack Mendez to start, but then
but
kind of got
Mendez's
flipped on.
Spartans are more, more survived compared to Halsey's slice them up, slice them, dice them version.
Well, Halsey's, I mean, we see Fred and Linda and John. I mean, they're battle hardened, but the Spartan 3s weren't designed to last that long. They were designed to be disposable.
Yes, they were designed to be disposable. Sorry, let me correct that. When I said the slice and dice augmentations, half of the Spartan 2s died. Pretty much all the Spartan 3s that were selected and created survived. So if 300 went in, 300 came out. Spartan 2s, 75 went in, 30 came out, or 33, or whatever it was, 33.
Right, but
that's what
I think, isn't it kind of argued to the fact that the Spartan 2s were kind of the best Spartans?
Yes. Best performance-wise, you can argue, if the Spartan 4s or 3s had the same equipment and same training regiment and experience.
And genetic mutations. And all
exactly.
That stuff.
Then there wouldn't be a difference. I mean, that's like saying, hey, if you take sorry if there's any security guards out there listening to this podcast, but if you take a rent-a-cop, mall cop, and you take a Navy SEAL, and, who's got the better training? Who's got the better equipment? Who's going to save the day better, right? I mean, the Spartan 2's got the best of everything compared to the other Spartan classes.
True. But yeah, it does run the
Spartan 3s,
cost.
The Spartan 3s had Kurt introduced stuff that was supposed to theoretically cause behavioral issues and things like that.
Yeah, it was supposed to stop shock or something like that.
Like with a slight possibility that they go psychotic and stuff like that.
Because some of the stuff that they were using brought out like animalistic tendencies.
Yeah, it was.
And they had to
ratty. What was it? Something aggression, rapid aggression, something. Whatever the psychological term was. It was supposed to make them, more aggressive, more violent, whatever. But it basically the other drug was so if they got hit with needlers and their side exploded, they would be able to keep going. That would normally kill a human or another Spartan too, because our body would go into shock. Their body would go into shock. These drugs counteracted that and allowed them to keep going harder, faster, and longer. Wow, that sounded like a bad porno.
Oh, so here it is. It's the neural-altering non-carcinogenic mutagen. Enhances aggressive responses to dangerous levels, requires regular doses of random texturing to be taken to avoid uncontrollable aggression, which is something I guess they skipped since they were only in the shield world for that long.
Well, and I think that was the thing that came out with Lucy, and that's when Halsey started to rile off on Mendez about the way he created his Spartans.
They're not quite stable.
But the funny thing is, Lucy didn't have that problem. It was only the last batch that had these genetic changes, chemical changes. Yeah, Gamma Company.
But did she know that?
No. And then that's part of the argument that ensues.
Although does Mendez know? I always forget.
Yeah, Mendez knew.
Mendez knew.
Mendez, okay.
Yeah, Mendez knew from the start because Kurt found
it
and he confronted Mendez about it.
No.
No, Mendez confronted Kurt about it. Or what?
Oh, really?
No.
I thought
Deep Winter did, or the AI. The AI confronted Kurt, and Kurt said, okay, but he had been the one who actually authorized
That's right.
it, so he just deleted it.
He sent a slipspace probe to wherever Kurt was doing the augmentations.
Yeah, I'm just not sure if Mendez ever knew or not. I need to reread Ghosts of Onyx.
Well, obviously he knew enough. Obviously he knew enough if in Glasslands he wasn't freaking out about the procedures that Halsey was, very upset about.
Mm-hmm.
he had to have some kind of, maybe he didn't know all the knowledge, but he had some basic knowledge, because, Halsey's like, if the Spartan 3s don't get their happy pills, what's going to happen in a couple weeks, Chief? And he's like, well, Doctor, we didn't all get super genetic supermen. These are random human beings that, we trained and turned into Spartans. They're not, like, he had to have known a little bit about these, different chemicals that weren't there in the previous batches.
Yeah, I thought I remembered he knew pretty much everything that went on, and there was some points in Ghosts of Onyx where he kind of felt bad about some of the stuff that he was doing, but then he would look at what Halsey did and kind of justify himself and what he was doing. Because that he wasn't killing off everybody with the different mutations, and that kind of plays into Osman's whole dislike for Halsey too, because, like I mentioned before, she was one of the failed candidates of the Spartan 2 programs. Yeah,
that brings up another thing, is why did only rebuild Osman? Why didn't they rebuild all the other Spartans that were... I mean, granted, Osman might have been recoverable, but I mean, if they can rebuild a Spartan 2 to fully functional again, why couldn't they have done that too?
Well, wasn't it like that she wasn't quite as damaged as the rest of them?
They brought it up in Halsey's journal, though, that was like I don't remember how often it was, but every few years Halsey would make a note like progress is coming along and getting the Spartans to recover.
I think they specifically mentioned Fajad, or I forget how you pronounce his name.
Yeah,
but, like, the one who was basically like pulverized and had to be in like a tank.
He was in the non-buoyant something liquid tank that basically just kept him immobile.
Neutral buoyancy tank.
There you go.
Yeah. So I mean, and that's one of the wiggles for there seemed to be way more Spartan 2s, especially since Legends came up with like 5 and killed them all off, is that some of the ones that washed out might have been rehabilitated.
Yeah, then there was that one from Evolutions who had that freakishly large arm and shriveled leg or whatever, and
don't remind me about that story. That was just a weak one.
I kind of enjoyed it. I mean, I enjoyed.
Too.
Sorry, this is a different story, but I enjoyed the story up until, I enjoyed the romp through the forest when he was a young boy. I enjoyed that part.
Yeah.
That's getting into another book, though.
Yeah, sorry. Back on topic.
Yeah. Sorry, we're kind of going off already. A little bit.
We were talking about training and chemical augmentations and stuff.
Well, I mean, it's all kind of tightly closed together, anyways. Tightly.
This is where 343, where a Mendez journal would be perfect to reference during this podcast.
It would be great.
Can anyone say? I mean,
we still have. We still have pretty much Kilo 5's adventure, and then Jules' adventure to kind of go through as well. Right. So we may be here.
Those kind of intertwine together.
Yeah,
we should touch on the encounter with the jackals because I think that was just cool.
I like the fact that when they wrote in there that the MA5B is still around. They didn't just the original assault rifle from Halo 1 is still there.
Well, it's Chief's favorite rifle too.
Is it?
Mm-hmm.
Where did that come from?
One of the first 3 books. I forget which one.
Oh, I thought you were just talking about the fact that he's got it in every single cutscene.
No, I think they specifically say in one of the books that it's either in First Strike or Fall of Reach, where they said it's his preferred.
I just finished it a couple nights ago as an audiobook.
I believe somewhere it says that was his preferred weapon, was the assault rifle.
Well, yeah, okay. Well, I'll do some digging and I'll get back to you on that.
Minor note.
Yeah, exactly. I'll find that with Jeff. I'm sure it'll spark a conversation.
Thanks. But yeah, so we have a couple of interactions between different sects of Covenant. Wow, I can't speak anymore. Covenant and Kilo 5, and the one that you brought up was the interactions with the jackals, and that was when they were on recovering Spencer on what planet?
Oh, the one where he set it up with the grunts, that was a maid that came in once a week. Shoot, I can't remember. Someone from the audience, save us.
Venezia?
No,
Rhaenys.
that was that.
Rhaenys.
Oh, yeah. Okay, that's it.
Yeah, and they were
one,
extracting Mike Spencer, who had been there kind of scouting out for a while, and he was being
Kinda got
reassigned.
left because he hadn't gotten orders for a while, apparently.
Yeah, so they were kind of pulling him back and reassigning him, and yeah, that was when they got attacked by jackals, and of course they pretty much demolished them all, as
was
you
it
normally would.
jackals or was it skirmishers?
It said Kigyar.
It was jackals.
It said Kigyar.
For sure.
It's funny, is I'm going to bring up something between that and Reach, which didn't make sense, unless it was explained and I missed it. But a ODST's helmet was able to deflect a shot from a needle rifle twice in this book, but poor Cat got domed. Does anybody know if they came up with why Cat was able to get domed?
Well,
and
obviously her shields were down, but
okay, fair enough. But it's just an ODST recon armor was able to deflect the
Versus the
needle
Spartan
rifle
helmet.
I imagine it would have to do with the angle that the shot was fired from. But I don't
Fair
know.
enough. Okay, I don't know. That was always one of my little quirks. I was like, wow, the ODST got better gear than a Spartan for a change, you know? Anyways.
I just love the way that whole encounter plays out. The way, like, they don't go in, because we're so used to seeing the jackals and the Kigyar in their various forms, and just, like, remove the shield, get the headshot, and we just engage them to take them out, and then we see them go into this, and even in the books, it's the same way in the books, destroy the phalanx and with a grenade or whatever the situation is, and in this one, they go in with the intention of not engaging them in combat, and it's really cool seeing that pirate mentality of the Kigyar as a whole kind of come out in their negotiations while they were trying to avoid hostilities.
And the fact that they finally deployed some sensible tactics with, was it Naomi or one of the ODSTs was out on Overwatch with the sniper rifle, and covering, and, instead of, general UNSC tactics or lack thereof, it was kind of refreshing to see even rudimentary tactics and brain cells applied to UNSC soldiers.
Yeah, I mean, usually they just crash their ships.
Or drive you off a cliff or or whatnot, or Leroy Jenkins,
It made me, I just feel like that whole scene, it was cool because, like a lot of the more recent Halo fiction, it takes a different approach to this perspective that we've had on the different alien species that exist within Halo. And to me, I guess I'm a Star Trek fan. I don't consider myself as much of a Trekkie because I just recently got into it. But one of the things that I love about the show is the way it explores differences between cultures. And that's something that I really want to see Halo explore more and more. And this scene with the jackals, and then, of course, the cultural exchange between Phillips and the Sangheili is like kind of a first step towards that. I think there's a lot of potential with the races that Halo has created.
So long as Halo doesn't get the mantra of Star Trek's Alien of the Week.
No, I was about to say.
don't
So you're saying the next book should be Master Chief steps on a piece of sacred grass and is thus condemned to death.
Oh, you mean like that? I know this is going off topic, but that episode of Star Trek Enterprise where Archer's dog took a leak on the tree and then he had to chainsaw
No, but that's ripping off the even worse Next Generation episode. Yeah, sorry, totally off topic. Where Wesley,
we'll go back
it's
to
like
Halo.
this beautiful paradise, and
Oh,
Wesley
yep, I
steps
remember
on
that
a
one.
piece of grass.
Oh, that's
and he's
right. He was
condemned to
playing
death.
like football or
No,
whatever.
he runs into. Yeah, he trips over something and runs into
goes
like
into the off, and the thing is, they never know where those zones are going to be. They change every day or something like that. I remember that episode.
Yeah.
The people that run everywhere and they were half naked all the time.
Mhm.
And blonde. They were all blonde.
Halo doesn't have space hippies. This is good.
And it doesn't have space Nazis either. That was a good episode.
Oni?
I guess it's debatable.
I was talking about like the early UNSC.
I don't know if that's completely comparable to like space Nazis, but that's just kind of the dark side of humanity.
Well, I always thought the UNSC was kind of space fascist, if we're going to go there.
Well, they definitely are, and that's
Like
something I
space-
appreciated. Was
Space
that
Russia,
book.
because they've got their space
Space
AK-47.
Russia.
I
Sorry,
mean, they've got-
USSR. Soviets. They were the Soviets kind of deal.
Yeah, I mean, basically they take over, like, basically every aspect of life. They mention, like, one of the reasons that some of the insurrectionists, I forget where, is, like, some of the insurrectionists didn't want the jobs they were assigned.
And
Like,
they were told,
wait,
you're going to do that.
yeah, like, so there's definitely I'm glad it's coming out because, yeah, it's fundamental. Even before the insurrection, it was a pretty damn close to fascist state.
You know that book you're referencing? I know exactly the line because that's the new audiobook I've re-listened to. It's Contact Harvest. They were saying that the insurrectionists didn't want to be told what to do, how many children to have,
Yeah.
etc. That's exactly the line. I know what you're talking about. Hey.
And that's something Glasslands really made clear, where I don't think it was... I mean, it was always kind of obvious, I mean, because, hey, the Master Chief got conscripted into this whole thing, but especially, and I mean, also the Spartan Ops, the same characters, they're like, hey, this isn't a nice place to be, really. Halo universe is kind of mean.
So, back to the topic of this meeting of the Jackals and Kilo 5. After they disposed of the Jackals, did anyone else like the fact that they were being a little more devious and they took the bodies of those Jackals for use later on?
Yeah, that was interesting. I mean, it would fit completely in line with what Oni would do, find ways to kind of cover their tracks wherever possible. And we do see that use it later when
they obtain a package.
Yeah. So, I mean, we go ahead and talk about it, but there was a ship that was supposed to be transferring a Huragok to the elites. Was it the...
Needs adjustment, or Adge. That was his nickname, Adge.
Yeah, it was needs adjustment, but it was for...
It was for Telcam.
It was for Telcam? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, it was.
And so they intercepted it when they were near Venezia, and they actually went in, assassinated all the brutes that were protecting it, and then they used the dead jackal bodies to frame it to make it to where the jackals attack the brutes.
Yes. And you got...
And that was
BB
clever cunning.
Making a multiplayer reference by saying yoink, and I think there was a red versus blue reference in there with blarg, blarg, honk, or whatever. Yeah.
I think also Phyllis, the pronunciation of Phillips, I guess it says on Halopedia that that's also a reference to the AI Phyllis from Red versus Blue.
Oh.
Yeah, that's what it says on the wiki. Yeah. I didn't know that either.
A fair amount of them, because Travis is actually a big Red versus Blue fan.
Okay.
So, anyways, that where they pick up the engineer, Huragok, and they collect it, and I can't believe that this was written into the story, but it's one of my favorite things, that the first thing that Huragok modified, besides the ODST basic armor, was the coffee machine. And you know, whatever he did to it, you know, they were like, we should quit being in the military and use him for commercial purposes, like jokingly, but you know, that's something that, you know, people would totally do. You know, you can beat Starbucks by, you know, doing whatever he did to every commercial application versus military. I don't know. I just thought that, you know, it's funny that people 20 or 500 years or whatever it is, 500 years in the future, we're still, you know, thinking about monetary gains during wartime. It was just interesting.
Well, no, you bring up an interesting point. I think that might just be driven kind of from our culture too. I'll know. I mean, it is 500 years in the future, so we don't really know how it would even affect society.
No,
then.
I just thought it was funny. Like the first thing that they let the engineer upgrade was the coffee machine. You know,
well, I don't think it was
comforts.
I don't think it was them letting the Huragok upgrade the coffee machine. I think that was just the first thing it grabbed onto.
No, they were specific, like in the book when they started
fiddling
really? With crap to keep it from getting to BB and sensitive and secret stuff. Like they were gonna let it gradually, and apparently it just modified the coffee machine for no reason, but they didn't care.
I don't think it was a target. I think it was just something that it eventually the Huragok went over and did it.
I don't know. I just thought it was funny that, you know, it modified a human creature comfort, you know, because most people need caffeine in the morning or some kind of stimulant or some kind of vice, and it just improved it.
Right.
On supposedly the super high quality Jamaican whatever Oni coffee or whatever it was.
The Oni coffee. It's the Oni
that's what they
brew.
were calling it, the Jamaican Oni blend or something like that.
But yeah, so definitely try to keep it away from BB. Because BB wouldn't be happy if it had another entity trying to just sort through.
The Haragok modifies his hologram and it turns into an apple instead of a box. Sorry. That was just a stupid product placement joke.
Really? You seem to be dropping those quite a bit tonight.
What? I mentioned Surface because it's a Microsoft podcast and Apple. This episode brought to you by 343, makers of Halo.
I thought you were going to say penguins for a second.
Ken has free swag, please, for more, dropping of, endorsements.
We endorse them every week by talking about them, so...
Oh, I know. I'm just saying, if we're going to do product placements, let's just be shameless about it, and get it out there.
Uh-huh.
Pepsi, Coke, Halo, Microsoft, Apple,
Because, Coca-Cola needs more, publicity.
Google, Google, Yahoo,
Google Plex.
All those.
All right. Enough product placement. Let's see. What have we covered yet?
We haven't gotten to the part about Telcam's treatment on the ship after they capture him.
Well, did they?
Okay.
Well, you mean
Andama.
Sorry,
Jewel.
You mean
Andama.
Jewel.
My bad.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, Jewel.
I say Telcam was the one that was making the cutting the deals.
Sorry, my bad.
So yeah, Jewel was caught tailing Telcam and actually witnessed the exchange of the human weapons from the ODSTs, and then Naomi was being sneaky and caught Jewel off guard. And
is that the point where BB's in her armor?
No, that was
not yet.
That was when they went over to the ship and jacked the Haragok.
Yeah, that was during the Piety, when they were hijacking Piety and getting the engineer.
That was awesome. That's all I wanted to say.
Well, she was like, "Don't mess with my motions that much."
Yeah, but she was in Naomi at
reluctant.
that point. When she jacked up Jewel and Dama's face pretty bad. she, basically, she'd speak and BB would translate through the helmet. So.
Right.
Yes.
She didn't want any help other than that, though. Like, she didn't want any additional enhancements or anything, but just leave him to strictly logistics. Yeah.
Yeah.
He was
the bag boy, basically.
Yeah. She was not very keen to the idea of having him in her head anyways. But yeah, so there was the capture of Jewel and the interrogation from both BB and the ODSTs. Well, Naomi was just there to pin him down, pretty much. But the ODSTs
she tased him, bro, several times with a cattle prod. I want to do that in game. I want one of those humbler stun batons.
Hold RB to stun elite.
That's right. Hold RB to stun elite instead of stabbing it. Just walk up, bzzz, watch it flail, bzzz, hit it again. If it gets up. I'm sorry. That made me laugh when they had a cattle prod in the game, or sorry, the book. And they stunned an elite and I don't know, I just laughed because all we see is you shoot the elite or you stab it, there's not
or for any person or in other in Halo there's just you shoot the guy pretty much.
Well,
or
there's references
or
to
you can
this
splatter him
device
with a vehicle.
in other Halo books, like in graphic novel, the ODSTs take on the Spartan that's testing the Mark 6 Maria, and they attack her with these stun batons, and what's his name, Mendez, stun Chief, when he came out of, the Pelican the first day of training, zapped him because he was being a little brat. So, I just like the fact that they brought the stun baton back.
I forgot about that. It's been a while since I've read the first books.
Anyways, interrogation. Someone else should take over.
Yeah, so... Well, I don't exactly remember what interrogation questions were specifically asked, but I do remember that Jewel was getting to the point where he was getting trying to figure out how to escape, and then at one point he just gave up and tried to. This is where we see him start to break down and start to think more like the humans, and start being devious and starting to go away from that code of honor that he had adhered to, and try to figure out a way home. Back to Rhea, his wife, and the rest of what he tried to build on Venezia before he got captured. Nope. Okay.
Sorry, what was the question again? I was
it
listening.
It was more just an open floor for comment, but
they questioned him about was he they tried tricking him into reveal was he a agent of the Arbiter, or was he working for Talcam? And then...
Well, he was pretty much clueless. I mean, he was just
exactly.
kind of tagging along.
They didn't know what he was doing there. So they were trying to figure out why he was spying on them, and they finally got the answer out of him. They tased him a whole bunch. They beat him up. Let's see. What else did they do? He was there for when Halsey was captured or arrested, and Jewel was memorizing his daily routine of when the food showed up, when people would take bathroom breaks, and human smells. And he was starting to pick up on certain human words. Rudimentary learning English. That's what I remember.
I mean, it's basically everyone being a dick to Jewel. I mean, Phillips tells him, people might think that you're working with us and go kill your kids and keep. And then BB sort of has this mental game of screwing with him at one point. Basically everyone's just messing with him.
Well, Phillips tried to kind of level with him a little bit, and
I mean Phillips at least is trying to talk straight to him, but it's not really helpful.
I almost feel kind of sympathetic for him, through the events of Spartan Ops.
Yeah, I think you're supposed to.
Yeah.
To a degree.
So, wait, what? That's kind of weird. Why are they trying to make the UNSC out to be, so, I don't know, evil, I guess? It's kind of flipped, I guess.
Because there's evil people out there.
Yeah. And don't forget, this is the first instance where we finally got the new acronym for elites, and Sangheili Hinchhead was the name, and now we always get it in Halo 4 and Spartan Ops. This was where they introduced it.
But couldn't you use other synonyms sometimes? It's kind of unnecessary to keep on using them.
You could call them
Squid Face and Half Jaw or Split Lip and stuff. There's so many great ones.
Ugly. I mean, you could have just called them ugly. a little more variety would have been nice, yes.
Find and replace. It's a wonderful tool.
Again, that comes back to the whole... The humans say, it's just a little...
hinge heads.
A little, what do you call it? It's just the preference of taste, I guess, Wording. Let's see.
Some great stuff though in the Jewel, because once again, the Jewel thing, a lot of the scenes take place from his perspective. And there's little random things that I really like. At one point, he sort of has this aside because he sees Phillips cocks his head, and Jewel thinks, oh, it's like a Kigyar. He's like, I wonder if they have some common ancestry. And then it goes on with everything else.
Or when Phillips or humans smile and Jewel doesn't understand, when he makes the in Sangheilian society, you bare your fangs, that means you're angry and ready to fight, but we as humans, smile and show our teeth. So he was confused and didn't understand that. Like things like that. Those were interesting, quirks that, I never really thought about, like with the elites. It's like, hey, we smile at them, or whatever our facial expressions, what does that mean to them? I mean, if we smile, does that mean we're going to attack them, or if we frown, does it mean, happy birthday for all we know? Body language is different for each species.
Brent, you've been awfully quiet this podcast.
So's TDSpiral. I mean, they're probably napping.
So has TDSpiral.
Oh, I like listening.
Do you have anything to comment on anything that we've talked about so far?
Be nice.
I mean, we've covered most of the stuff in the book. There's a couple of things that we still need to cover. But,
yeah, that's the thing. It's like you guys have covered a lot of it. So,
but I mean, do you have any personal opinions or kind of thoughts of it? Because I know we've voiced, mostly the Ford and the Don and Laird have kind of voiced their opinions because they're a lot more. Well, you guys are a lot more knowledgeable than I am. That's why I have you on the show in the first place. But any kind of like particular opinions that you have, Spiral, that hasn't been voiced yet?
I guess it's been a while since I've read the book, but just looking from the notes, I don't know. It's I guess Fell's kind of downplay, the Arbiter. Like he seems like a really important character in the original trilogy, and he's just kind of, I don't know, like I have these hopes for him post-war that were not really fulfilled, and he just kind of retires, and it's like, all right, I'm just gonna chillax now and be, a political leader.
He's just trying to watch.
What you're saying is he's gotten a little fat, and he's older, and
too much yogurt.
No. What's that? The Sangheili roast meat, whatever it is. Thornbeast? No, that's the brutes.
That was brutes. But I've always kind of had this hope that he would go on and fight the brutes and unite the Sangheili. Like Leviathan had this comic book. It was Sangheili's War is Never Over, and
it was his book before Fistful Arrows.
Yeah, this is actually my first introduction to Levi's work, so it's one of my favorite pieces before Fistful. And
you mean a fistful of cannon?
Yeah.
I do think that it makes sense they sidelined him in the trilogy, but
this isn't Joel basically the new Arbiter? I mean, that's how I see him.
Well, the Arbiter doesn't have a place in the story just because, and I think this is another issue people have with the books, is just that, after we were expecting, oh man, like, especially since they originally marketed it as the Ghosts of Onyx sequel.
Oh, yeah.
Which, of course, it was not actually. Yeah. But people had these expectations that it was going to be like, oh, these big, like, earth-shaking things. And big events are happening, but it's all taking place from a small part in it, like an important part, but these small characters. And so it is it's understandable that the Arbiter isn't present for much of it, or he's got a small role, but it also is disappointing because we got to tear it up with him in other games.
Isn't he like the main focus of the new Halo comic, not Initiation?
There is a comic that's supposed to detail some stuff with the Arbiter,
But other than that, he hasn't really had like any, big roles except for maybe Cole Protocol, which is, I don't know. But also, kind of talking back to, how it was like supposed to be this Ghost of Onyx sequel, or they marketed it, that way to begin with. It's also just sort of disappointing in a way that the Ghost of Onyx character, that whole story just kind of happens, and then they're rescued in a couple days or weeks or something. But I don't know. I feel like when I read Ghosts of Onyx, it ended in a way that I was like, oh man, something big's gonna happen. They must have a cool idea for this later on. And I don't know. I was just kind of like, yeah, it didn't have any lasting impact on Halo 4. I don't think.
Yeah, I really hope, considering how massive Trevelyan is, it has some sort of bearing in the future, because it, as you say, like, it didn't set out to be a Ghosts of Onyx sequel, but it did address some of the things, and it feels like if it was only to get Halsey and the Spartans back, like, it was just a wasted thread.
Speaking of, as this, Glasslands was supposed to be the sequel to Ghosts of Onyx, what the hell happened to the Onyx Sentinels? Like, there was supposed to be trillions of these things, and they just go away? Like these things were deadly beastly things in Ghost of Onyx, and then they're just gone. That was another thing that...
Well, also the Shield World Trevelyan
just
much bigger than Onyx itself was. So.
Well, yeah, it's the orbit, or 2 astronomical units, whatever, the same size as the Earth's orbit around the sun, roughly.
Yeah, and then it is cool also that I don't, it's not explicitly stated that they are Sentinels, but some sort of Forerunner constructs that look like the Onyx Sentinels are described show up in Spartan Ops, the second half of the season, which is really cool. Felt like the second half of the season had so many cool call-outs to the novels in a lot of ways like that.
Well, if we're going to talk about throwouts, I mean, what was that in the latest Armor DLC? Championship bundles, the Forerunner, that armor is, based on something that they found in Trevelyan, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of Trevelyan, too, it's where Jewel ended up. And we see Dr. Magasin and Jewel start to kick it off, and she's trying to learn all about Sangheili and their culture and everything, and she's basically assigned to learning everything about him. And we see that kind of expand in Thursday War too, so we'll save it for that. But it's where he gets dumped after being captured and after being tortured and interrogated by the Kilo 5 crew. So we have that to look forward to in the next book.
Yeah, it was kind of like he almost was forgotten with the whole Halsey shows up, and then he got dumped. He became a lower priority after they found Trevelyan and Halsey and the whatnot. Jewel kind of got tossed into the background.
And I think it's heavily in Thursday War, but it's even, they set it up here by just dumping him is the whole idea that...
Well, it's almost like it's the setup.
The UNSC is so interested in the shiny stuff that they sort of do abandon Jewel, and obviously...
If they had only put a bullet in his head...
to bite him in the butt.
Yeah, if they had only put a bullet in his head like they suggested...
Or they had just stuck him in a more secure facility, they kind of have that superiority.
Space him, put him in the airlock, open the door, that's the biggest, thing that the UNSC screwed up on of all the
screw-ups.
Yeah,
comes back to bite them.
That's right. 10 years or 6 years later, he blows up their new prize that they're fighting over.
Yeah, there you can draw an interesting parallel to a lot of the old Halo stories where it was the Covenant are so arrogant they think that they can just walk in and we'll fool them by whatever. So it's an interesting contrast of how you give us a little bit of power, they go crazy over it.
Well, basically, humanity went from the whipping boys to top of the food chain, at least under the Forerunners. The Forerunners are still top of the food chain, but from the species that existed in the Milky Way, we went from the very bottom to the top in a short period of time. So yeah, we've got that chip of arrogance on our shoulder right now.
Mooning the universe since 2552.
Well,
and
we're
that's
mooning the
only
universe
one dynamic.
Because of the engineers.
Well, that's only one dynamic, too, because we still have... we see the contrast between what Osman's doing with Kilo 5 and then what Hood's doing with the Arbiter.
Well, you want to talk about Hood? Wasn't Hood, maybe I'm saying this wrong or my perspective is, but wasn't Hood one of Halsey's biggest supporters? He was a Halsey cheerleader almost?
I don't remember.
I don't know.
No, he was a supporter of the Spartans, not necessarily.
Okay, because I was going to say it's pretty, and it's also the Spartans. I mean, Hood knew by the time the memorial happened that Halsey was still alive. The Spartans didn't say nothing, and then we find out later when minor spoilers towards the next podcast, we find out that Hood knows Halsey's on the Infinity and doesn't do anything to free her. So it's like, it's.
Well, could he really without affecting his political position?
I don't know. That's the whole. How much power does Parangosky have over Hood and whatnot? That's the whole
and that
thing.
power is soon going to Osman too.
Yeah, it was more of, couldn't Hood set her free? He knew, like, that's the whole thing. He let Parangosky get away with putting Halsey in jail, or behind the scenes. I mean, Hood, if he wanted to, probably could have stepped in, and that was the whole thing. I couldn't remember if he was a Halsey cheerleader or a supporter of the Spartan program. And by proponent of being a supporter of the Spartan program, Halsey shouldn't be in jail. That was, I remember people were saying, like, on a forum that, there's no reason Halsey should be in jail, with Hood, being a supporter of her work, but he knew she was in jail, for years almost.
Well, I think we see some kind of developments in Thursday War that kind of explains that too, which I want to save for the next podcast.
Yeah, that's why I said minor.
Yeah, right. But yeah, we see, we kind of see the whole acknowledgement from Hood. It's like, okay, I know you're up to something here, but I'm going to kind of turn a blind eye kind of thing when he goes to meet with the Arbiter. And because the detail that he has there when Hood and Arbiter are meeting on Sangheili was Kilo 5. So after that whole thing, he pretty much knew that they were there for some other reason, but kind of turned a blind eye to the whole thing to begin with. And then that's when Phyllis got the invite from the Arbiter to come back, and that was arranged after they went to Earth for the memorial, and that's when Arbiter got invited. And like you guys said earlier, if you could pan a little bit on during the final cutscene in Halo 3, you would see them standing there in the background. So
we have to wait for Halo 3 anniversary for that.
Is that going to be an Easter egg in there?
Yeah, just like the Halo 3 ODST Easter egg.
Yeah.
Well, that didn't show anything in Halo 3. That was,
well, in ODST, though.
It was the monkey.
Yeah, the monkey.
The monkey.
Which is very important to the story.
Talk about one of the most random Easter eggs.
He was a huge plot point in Thursday War, I think, right?
The monkey?
That's why they had that whole chapter from his point of view.
Yeah. It's very interesting.
Damn monkey.
You never really think about, what's going on from the monkey's perspective. Chapter.
I guess you don't.
So what you're saying is that someone has to do the comic of Halo 3 and Halo 3 ODST from the monkey's point of view.
Yeah, it's got to bridge the gap between those stories.
Has anyone ever thought that the Monkey Man was a relative of the Brute? That's the common ancestor between humanity and, the Brutes?
Maybe the Monkey Man's a Brute spy.
What if
No.
Just a weird tribe.
The Monkey Man is the offspring of a human and a Brute.
Ew.
What if he's just like a surviving, Chamanouche? Runner time?
Oh, what was his name?
People.
Not
Hobbits.
Shotgus.
Or Riser?
Riser.
I always get the two mixed up.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Could be.
That could be.
It's Riser.
Somehow traveled from the Pacific to Africa.
Maybe it's a descendant of Marcus Leto.
Oh, okay.
I just want to know how he got from the forest of Africa to the orbital station with Johnson and the engineer. So, yeah,
Well,
that's an important plot point.
Didn't he do that in reverse, since that takes place before Halo 3?
Just barely before Halo 3.
So much smarter than I am. Yeah, I totally forgot that for a second.
A couple more things before getting to the end, pretty much. We have Mike Spencer, who's been deployed to... what was the planet?
names.
Was it Venezia? Yeah.
Yeah.
It was Venezia, in the city of New Tyrene, and he's out there scoping out the resistance leaders. And it turns out that one of them is Naomi's father.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun. It plays a small plot in the next book. And you mentioned it earlier, Laird, of how the ship that the insurrection acquired. I don't know if, I guess, Venezia's father's on there, but I guess that would be one of the ships that the insurrectionists here got. That would be on Midship and Heretic.
Yeah. Pious Inquisitor.
Pious Inquisitor.
Yeah, which is what I think, is what's going to happen is he'll get that ship and go after Earth or colonies or whatever in the last Kilo 5 book.
Right. But yeah, while they're at Venezia and checking up on Spencer, Phillips has been sent out back on Sangheili and has been invited and has the little camera thing with the poison dart in it, controlled by a sub issue of BB, so to speak. And
Fragment,
there you go, thank you. I was like, what's the word? So Fragment of BB, and he's there solving room puzzles and finding little things in there. And I guess he gets to a point where he wants to go explore the temples, and the elites are like, you probably don't want to do that. No one's been in there. And then to wrap up the book, 2 explosions go off, and they lose the camera feed, and then Osman and the rest of Kilo 5 is trying to pull out, I guess it was Vaz and Mal that went down to see Spencer and try to rush back to Sangheili as quickly as possible.
yes.
And that's where we pretty much end.
Sorry,
Yeah.
you missed the part where they had the memorial, then they ran off to go save him.
No.
Wait, what? The memorial wasn't...
The memorial was before the bombing.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
we
it
already
was a while before.
Yeah.
No, it was only a few days because they had the
Well,
memorial and then...
Phillips went to Sangheili after the memorial. They went from the memorial to Sangheili to drop off Phillips, and then they went to Venezia to check up on Spencer and his spying on the insurrectionists. Right?
Yeah, okay, so memorial dropped Spencer off, then... Yeah, sorry.
Then Venezia.
I was just in the timeline, just trying to figure out where it was. I just know it all happened in March.
They get around pretty quickly, I guess. So that's pretty much where we end up. Any other comments on the book? I know we kind of skipped a lot of details, but there's so much stuff in this book kind of following up.
Well, it just means people should read it.
That is true. And
On a scale of 1 to 10, I'd give it, regardless of how you feel about the author or certain materials, I'd give it a 7.5. It's a good solid read, and it gives you a lot of, info that helps out to fill in the background of Halo 4.
It's
I'd give it
actually
an 8.
personally one of my favorite books of the whole thing. But then again, I like Cole Protocol too. So
I had no
What's
problem
wrong
with
with
Cole
you?
Protocol. I mean, it had one of the best fight scenes ever, where a Spartan picks up a mongoose and uses it as a baseball bat.
I don't know. Cole Protocol felt like the most like I was reading a Halo game to me. I don't know.
Wasn't that the Flood, which was
it was. Well, the nice thing about the Flood was you got to see the other side of the Marines.
Yeah.
Yeah.
ODSTs
And the Covenant.
You could have just cut like
Yeah, half
30
of it.
pages of combat stuff or out
Yeah.
of like everything. It would have worked a lot better.
And you got to see what happened to Jenkins.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Also, you get a little bit of Covenant perspective.
I
Yep,
mean,
yep.
like to me,
A
the
dabble.
problem with Cole Protocol is it contributes really nothing.
Yeah.
Like I don't feel like it helped
Well,
us.
and it's just like
stand
it's a random
keys or the
story in
Arbiter
there.
more.
It doesn't really fit in with how the rest of the books have been played out. It's just kind of a random, kind of thrown in their story, and I mean you can see where it fits in the universe, but it doesn't tie in with the rest of the books very well.
No, I agree.
I mean,
just
you could say
think-
the same thing about the Greg Bear novels. I mean, it doesn't fit anywhere with how the other novels have been written so far. It has importance for
but
Halo 4.
No, but I mean, I'm sure you'll touch on this more, but Silentium ties into so much stuff in the games, like answering age-old questions fans have been arguing about before.
See, I haven't read Silentium
Whereas,
yet.
Then you'll have to. He's real good.
That's the only Halo book I would put at a 9 out of 10 if we're using that system.
I don't know. I'm a big fan of the original Eric Nyland books, but I'm not gonna throw, the Kilo 5 trilogy under the bus, because I was indifferent originally, like when I read it / listened to it. I didn't like some of the changes because, like a lot of people were adjusting from old Bungie Halo to 343 Halo, and at that time I still had that view that Bungie Halo, don't alter it, don't adapt with the times kind of deal. But the more and more I gave it a second or a third read and through 10th or whatever, it kind of grew on me. So that's why I said it's a solid read and what's interesting characters. It's not it's not The Fall of Reach or Ghosts of Onyx. Those are my favorites, but those are my favorites because they're my favorites to me. But it's still a good read and definitely a added bonus to have towards Halo 4 as tertiary material.
Right.
Sorry, I just killed conversation.
No, that's...
I was just thinking.
Yeah. Well, and we're kind of wrapping up on the podcast, too, so we're kind of finishing thoughts and ideas. As far as, like, some of the other stuff that we didn't cover, pretty much go read the books, and we'll probably bring up some other stuff when we go through Thursday War. But I think we got a good overview of the book. Any final details you think that we missed in our discussions that you guys want to bring up, or are we kind of good to wrap up for now? Because we've been going for almost 3 hours. Shh. I was expecting it too, because this is one of the better books, and personally, I don't have an author preference, and I think this was a good continuation of how the Eric Nyland books were written, and I do agree that you do see a lot more personality and a lot more character, like a lot more stuff behind the characters and the emotions, but I still think it still held true to how Eric Nyland's kind of presented some of the stuff in the past, and it wasn't that drastic of a change for me.
I like the scene in the beginning when they go to the bar in Sydney. Kind of brings the war home for a little bit.
Yeah, civilian interaction. Because, other than Halo Reach, where you finally get to a city that had civilians in it, when Reach is falling, that really is the only civilian interaction that I can think of other than in Halo Reach the game, where some soldiers of the UNSC... Sorry, that's not true. My bad. There's a couple interactions in some of the Evolutions novel, but, seeing civilians interact with the ODSTs as they're coming into Australia now that the war is over, and kind of giving them that thanks for saving our butts kind of deal was kind of cool.
What part was that again? Where was that again?
Like Isaac was saying, I'll let him finish his story.
It's early in the book. It's like right in the beginning. I think it's the first scene where you meet Mal and Baz.
Okay. Right, just when you see them talking before meeting up with the rest of the Kilo 5 team?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Where they're going to that bar, and it's not there anymore.
Right.
And that construction crew gives them, like, a juice box, which seems kind of funny, but it's what they had, right? And they did the toast to their buddy who wasn't alive.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. Okay.
Just seeing like the civilians interacting with the ODSTs, like, saying thank you, like that there wasn't that, civilian interaction with, military personnel other than that instant that I can think of. And, in Reach, when you're, Noble 6 walking through that city when you're injured and the brutes are dropping in and civilians are running and you got to protect them. There's not that civilian interaction in Halo other than those two instances. So it's kind of nice to see civilians interacting. I don't know, just interactions. new open interactions that we haven't had previously.
Well, yeah, and it's something that's very rare in the games too, because it's mostly Spartans interacting with other soldiers. It's not the other way around. I mean, you kind of see it a tad in Halo 3, because you have
right.
the
dock workers.
Yeah, the dock workers and the
factory
engineers, yeah, and all those people. I mean, there's not really an interaction. They just kind of run around. But yeah, as far as the civilian interaction, though, we haven't had much of it within the Halo universe as a whole. I've never really thought about that before.
I mean, there's like little nuggets or niggling moments, whatever. But there's not something that's like, hey, look, right in your face, civilian and military interaction. Like, I mean, there's a little bit in Evolutions, and I guess there's kind of a huge chunk between Johnson. And now that I'm thinking about it, maybe I should retract that comment, because there's a whole lot of civilian interaction between Johnson and the people of Harvest in Contact Harvest. But for the most part, they're not thanking the military. Like I guess that's what I was saying. They're not thanking military. They're not thankful that the UNSC is there, because when Johnson is on Harvest, he's kind of got the people that are sympathetic towards the insurrectionists kind of giving him a hard time. So, how about those things that people are supposed to be talking about?
Sorry, awkward. Well, my tablet just went off for some reason. I think as far as yes, I think as far as talking topics tonight, though, I think we're pretty much done. We've been going for 3 hours, so let's go ahead and just wrap some things up. We will be doing this again on, let's see, the next books would be Primordium, and we'll do that, I think, the last week in November. So if you are interested in wanting to listen to that one as well, make sure you're caught up on your books, and we will do a podcast then for Primordium. A lot of it is kind of tied into the last bit of the book, so I'm not sure how long we're going to make the podcast. I feel it's going to be a lot shorter than this one, probably more like an hour and a half type of podcast, but we will definitely be looking forward to doing it. So we're going to wrap it up then. We're going to do Thursday War next, or not Thursday War, Primordium for next time. Last week, November, so make sure you get the books read. I want to give a huge thanks again to the panelists that were here tonight. The guys from Forward Unto Dawn. We have FinalPOSTMORTEM. And
Thanks, again.
Yeah, not a problem. Thanks for kind of coming on last minute and pulling along Dangerous Dave and TDSpiral. So thank you guys for coming on, and congratulations on being here for your first Podtacular episode. Hopefully it will be one of a few or one of many. So
I enjoyed my time.
Even though you didn't get to talk as much.
Yeah, maybe on a different topic.
Yeah, we'll get you on another show where you have a little more freedom to talk.
Sounds good.
Why Cole Protocol is the best book ever.
Yeah, I didn't say it was the best. I just
don't know why The Flood is the best Halo book ever.
I actually haven't read The Flood.
I'll be on that one. I'll defend it.
Yeah.
I think we may roll back around to some of the older ones. It's just when we tried to do the Fall of Reach, the first time we made so many connections to the newer books that it was more a spoiler cast for the newer stuff than it was for the old books. So
Yeah.
We'll tread lightly on that one, but there is plenty of room to do podcasts on Halo, the stories in Halo Evolutions. And
yes, I know all about those.
and I've actually never looked through Halsey's journal, so maybe
You
when I
should probably do that.
Maybe
seeing
when
as
I
it's
get-
a big part of Kilo 5 trilogy.
maybe when I get
there's
around
lots
to
of
it.
Glasslands threads.
Okay, maybe when I get around to it, we'll do a podcast on that specifically. So, we'll see what happens there. And Laird, thank you again for coming on 2 weeks in a row. Appreciate it.
No problem. Always here to talk Halo.
Yay.
Except when it becomes uncomfortable during GTA. One person will catch that reference.
Yeah. Oh.
Now you got it.
Realization.
All right. So again, everyone, thank you for tuning in. If you've made it this long, thank you for dishing it out for 3 hours. Really appreciate the support that you guys have been given as well. Remember, we do our podcast live on Thursday nights at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time, and you can catch us on Twitch TV, and that's twitch.tv/Podtacular. And you can also find us on our website, podtacular.com. So if you have any things or topics that you want us to discuss in Primordium, or if you have certain thoughts about any of the things that are in the book, definitely send it to us. You can email us directly at submissions@podtacular.com, or you can use the big green submit button on our homepage and send it to us that way as well. We also have game nights on Wednesday nights right now, and that is our customs game night, and that happens at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And we are looking to kind of reschedule Monday Night Matchmaking. Not sure when that's going to be done, but I think right now, tentatively, it's going to turn into Throwdown Tuesday, and that will be our matchmaking night. Still working out the details, but hopefully we'll have something. If not for next week, the next matchmaking update will have something for you guys. Episode 400 is coming up. We're not planning anything really big special. We are looking to possibly do a couple of things different with the podcast, and hopefully start posting some stuff on YouTube, but no big changes, no big announcements, no big guests or anything for episode 400. Just stick by, and we'll see you guys next week.